22nd to 24th. Who thinks Nicole Sackett should be there for that? She's debating. We need Nicole Sackett at our fan party in Las Vegas at the Golden Nugget. That's where we're hanging out all weekend, the Golden Nugget. So if you're coming, book your hotel room at the Golden Nugget. You're going to be hanging out with us the entire weekend. Bombshell Bomber, nice to have you back. Thank you for joining us. And Philip Baca, the Philip Baca is here. We're almost done here. And Mr. Catfish, nice to have you here. Scrolling on down, the gorgeous dirt road. We only got a few seconds. Who else can we fill in? Phil Minervito. And that's it. Let's do it here. Do me a favor, people. Get your horns up. It's time to rock. Let's go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. What a show we have for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We have Tommy Hawksblood talking UFOs, ET contact, the spirituality around it. Yes, I've been excited about this show with Tommy for a long time. I've wanted to interview him for a long time, and now we got him. Then in hour number 3, we are going to bring you another spooky story from the swamp, courtesy of Swamp Dweller. Fedora John joins us for the UFO report. Shirky's Poo's got the news and the thought of the Dave. Tommy Hawksblood came close to his first alien encounter at the age of 12 with his friend in his own house. During those 6 years, he spent working with a deity, Green Terra, which he found out who it was actually 12 years later. He's learned hypnosis at age 14 and was fortunate to work with world-renowned mentalist, the Amazing Kreskin. Oh, I used to watch those specials. Who didn't watch the Kreskin on TV? The man was amazing. Anyways, later on, he worked with Army hypnotist named Mel Protes at the age of 16. Yeah, very talented Tommy is. He ended up doing group hypnosis sessions as well, which later becomes what he calls past life regressions. He spent 26 plus years just studying that field and a lot longer studying the entire phenomena because that's what it's all about. His website, adventuresintothestrange.com. Highly suggest you check it on out. Tommy Hawksblood, welcome to Spaced Out Radio. We're so thankful you're here. How you doing?
Greetings. Thank you, Dave, for bringing me on. I really appreciate it. There's a lot of stuff that I try to bring out wherever I go, and that's called truth about all the subjects you mentioned. What I want to say in the very beginning, everything I talk about is 99% my experiences. I had witnesses around some of it, not all of it. But I will not talk about somebody else's story in great detail because it's not mine. I'm not like a lot of speakers. I talk about what I know is fact, what I have experienced, even death-wise, which I'll get into later. So I don't base my truth on somebody else's. I don't base it on books. I don't believe in a lot of books. I don't believe in a lot of speakers. So I'm really hardcore, probably one of the most hardcore people in the UFO world. But I kind of pulled back from it because my partner split up and disappeared. So whether he got taken over by the government or anything, I do not know. But a lot of things were supposed to happen because we did a show for 9 months on Kerry Cassidy's show, and then suddenly it just all ended. But we were showing pictures of UFOs every week, 5 pictures a night. strange creatures, you name it, that we shot personally. We went up to a place, which I'll go into, about where Tesla worked with DuPont, where it's the most important UFO story never told, which I'll tell tonight if you want to hear it. But as far as the details, I can go into them in detail. It just takes that much longer for each story, but I'll try to get through a lot of stuff today. And please, at the end, get your questions together, because I love answering questions. I mean, in all my years, I had maybe 2 or 3 trolls. So yeah, I don't mind answering any question. I answer all my questions on Skype or my email. Good, bad, or indifferent. I promise I'll answer them, and I'll give you my truth. And I don't expect everybody to believe me, because truth is really hard to believe or hard to accept if you have a programmed truth, which most people do. And they're usually programmed by their parents, their friends, school, and everybody else around them. So I was a black sheep, I guess you could call me, all my life. I had a horrible childhood, but luckily for my spiritual side protecting me, and I learned a lot about that, which I really have to talk about the one experience, my first experience seeing a UFO. But it started when I was little. Do you want me to just...
Well, I want to ask you something here quickly, if you don't mind. And that would be, what is truth? Because everybody's truth in this field is different. Everybody wants to believe their own truth. I'm an experiencer. I think I tell the truth to my audience because that's the way we have been able to grow on this show. But I also know I have my critics who think my truth is a bunch of lies and hogwash. You know, so how do we define truth in this field?
Okay. In the UFO world, which I learned, I've been in this in 1958, nonstop, forced into it. I worked with abductees, missing time, for many years before it became public. I worked with women that lost their children and things like that. So when a person says, everybody will say, I have my truth. Where did you get it from? Who did you learn it from? Who did you study with? And who do you believe? Truth has to come from within. And without certain experiences, you never can experience the truth. If you never died or had a death experience, you can't understand what soul is outside of the body. So when people say, well, I know the truth, I said, do you? I'm aware of almost all my past lives back to Atlantis and one before it. So I know how history went. So when people say, well, this was like the Anunnaki created the humans and all the stories you're hearing now. Zecharia Sitchin came out with a great book, but people believe it. And in the UFO world, it took off. So certain books, I was a rebel. I fought with Bud Hopkins. I fought with a lot of these speakers. And they walked off stage because they couldn't hold a candle to what I was saying to them. Bud Hopkins never saw an alien, never saw a ship. So how do you write 25 books on UFOs by what other people say? So that's the way I am. If I have an experience of been near it or next to it, I'm not going to talk about it much. I was about 10 inches from a Bigfoot. So they are real. I mean, I could go on. I was about 12 feet from an alien coming in my house with my friend. I could go on about things like that. But I talk about they're real because I know they're real. I saw the ship take off in my yard. Nobody could take that away from me. So when they say, well, is it just not a UFO? I say, well, what is it? Russia coming in my backyard to come in my house to say hi and looking like a creature? Really? So, truth, I mean, some is accepted truth. Government truth makes you accept certain things as truth. But truth, reality, I say it goes way beyond that. And there's only one important truth, and that's learning to understand what God is. Because that's all this stuff together and what it means, why you're here, what you do, and everything else, which I do workshops on that a couple of times a year. Because I feel if a person's ready to move on from being on planet Earth in this ball to go into the greater worlds, I'll help them get there. I'll give them the techniques to work with. But a person has to do it themselves. Spiritual growth is the hardest thing to attain on this planet. And here's my challenge to the world. Name one spiritual person. Everybody claims they are, but they don't know the definition of what spiritual means. It was written by a man, but what it really is. What is a true spiritual person, and what can they do? I'll tell you this, real simple. Sure. There was only one that I know in history, Jesus. All right, I was there. He was the only one that had 32 psychic abilities and able to use them. All right, that's what you get when you become fully aware as a being, as a spiritual being. All right, now these psychics and all these other people with ability to claim to be a healer, claim to tell the future, they're not even a 10, 20% accurate. A good friend of mine, he was considered 80% accurate, Sean David Martin, from 1995 till the time he got arrested. The government came after him because he discovered Area 51. He took people in a van up there to watch these aliens, not the aliens, the alien motherships come in every couple of weeks. When they found that out, that's when they bought all that land and surrounded it and made it so nobody can get in there anymore. But I dealt with the most important people that I know in the UFO world together. Over the past 15 years, I lost about 16 of my best friends in the UFO world. All right. Most of them were killed. 2 of them went missing. The whole family went missing. 2 of my friends were put in jail. One was actually framed for murder. And one that's still alive, John Ford on Long Island, nobody's trying to get him out of there. He shot the best video, the best clear video of a UFO crash on Long Island. I went out to where it crashed, and the residue was there. But the fire department, police, and the FEMA came in. They closed that whole area off, and they actually had fire trucks and everything around it while they burned it. They tried to burn all the evidence down. Before they burnt it down, black trailers went in and out, taking all the stuff out. Now, here's something people might not know. There's a law on the fire department and the police department in their books of laws. They're not allowed to step into a UFO situation. They're only allowed to block it off. They can't go inside it. I saw it. My brother was a cop, and he showed it to me. He didn't believe it. But so when that happened on Long Island, they surrounded the whole. It was a couple of square blocks, and then they burned it down. Long Island's flatland. There's no way it would burn for 3 weeks. But in the interim, I saw the video. The person that filmed it sent it around the world 4 places. He says, if I die, the video gets released. He should have released it. All right, because when he kept it, I did a show called Strange Universe on TV with Sargel 18, and it was called Strange Universe. So the week after, it was taken off the air. He was supposed to go on, and they put him in the nut house, and they said he's crazy. On news in New York City and Jersey, they said, man with barrel of uranium is going to put it in toothpaste to kill people in Congress. That was a releasement statement when they arrested him. And, if anybody believes somebody could have a barrel of uranium and play with it, I mean, that's the level of people that listen to it. But, he's been in since 1996. And every year the government says we have to reevaluate him. They won't even let him go to trial because they have no proof. They can't prove that at any level. So they're going to keep him in there. They won't kill him because they don't want those videos released. But I'm telling you, the ship crashed on Long Island. You could see all the debris around it and everything. It was crystal clear.
What year was that?
1996.
Holy cow.
This was the year. Now remember, 1996 was the most critical year in the UFO world.
Why's that?
About 180 UFO people were killed. 200 top scientists were killed. And during that time frame, I mean, you got Phil Snyder's story. You got John Ford's story. I mean, the most important things. But I got a story that's probably equal or even maybe more important than Phil Snyder's story. Because nobody can talk about it. I know Peter Moon and Preston Nichols wrote a book about the Montauk Project and things like that. But I got involved with the real part of it. All right. There was called the Montauk Chair, which I never sat in it, so I won't say that part of it, but I had a friend that did what they actually were doing. Something that Preston Nichols was talking about, how they were taking all these children into these things and playing with their brains and everything, which they were. But he kind of lost it. He died, but he kind of lost it because when I went to see him a couple times, he was eating the whole pizza while he was lecturing. And it was really hard to hear him talking while he was chewing all the time. But his stories he came up with were funny, cool, but had nothing to do with really about UFOs and aliens or anything, or what happened at the Philadelphia experiment. And that is one of the most critical turning points to the planet itself. I can go into that if you want that now or what.
Well, we can go into, I don't mind going into the Philadelphia experiment. We got about 8.5 minutes, so everything's looking good.
All right, so let me start at the beginning. Sergeant 18 and I were going up to this place called Wanacue, New Jersey. It's a piece of land where the government army base has an underground base there, and so does DuPont. Tesla started working with DuPont in this underground city. During that time frame, before I was there, Sergeant lived on this property. They flooded the whole city and made it a reservoir. It became Wanacue Reservoir. Now, after that happened, he saw a ship crash on the property right near him, and he was running after it. His friend tackled him. He got a picture of that, and then the ship took off, and then they burned all that land. But no sooner than that, for 9 months, and this is documented, but people, guess what? You probably won't find anything of it now. But what happened for 9 months, UFOs were going in and out of the reservoir, frozen or not. And they just went straight in all the time. And the government had an army stationed around it the whole time. And during that time, nothing was ever done. All right. But it showed that they have a lot more power over this planet than people say. Well, they're trying to fly through space. They're just drones, and they're this, that, and everything else. But they have no clue. I spent my whole life dealing with this part of it as well. I must have saw over 2,000 ships at least. I was close to maybe 25. I was really close to one that was in my backyard. But the one that was coming to abduct my brother when I was 6 years old, came right up to the window. It couldn't come that close to the building, but it looked like it was that close, shooting this beam at my brother, and I jumped in front of the window. And then it shot back out into space. That's what pulled me into this whole thing, made me realize that I was protected. Because it was only 12 years later. I was 12 when that happened. My friend was over my house, and we heard all these noises, and we went downstairs, and this creature was walking around in my house. We ran upstairs, grabbed baseball bats, and went running down trying to chase it, and went right through the door. And we went back to tell my mother, and she goes, "What'd you see? Let me hear his story. Then I'll hear your story." She couldn't believe a single word. So we went in the other room, and then we see the ship take off. All right. When you're 12, you're not on drugs, you're not daydreaming. We're talking, we're both alive and well, my friend and I. So it wasn't like we created a story for any reason. That's as far as the story ever went at that time. My mother never wanted to hear it again. So, but from that point on, I always had ships over me. But in the interim, the spiritual side, I had these deities, this one deity coming to me all the time now. But outside of all that, the whole Montauk Project, I missed one little thing. We got to read Tesla's notes. He did say that he worked with an alien race. He didn't say what race, which I'll do anything to find out. No psychic can tell me so far. Somebody could just say a name and say, well, that's who they were, but I'd really love to know who was the real race Tesla worked with, because they gave him the most deadliest weapons to this planet that will destroy the planet in time. Time travel is the worst toy we can play with. I don't know if people understand that. It is real. So when you start talking about going back in time, Al Bielik was a good friend of mine. He was the one that was on the ship that went back in time. When I met him the last time, he was offered $4 million to go back to kill somebody. Because when they went back the first time, somebody died, and it changed history. It changed politics. And they had to send somebody to rearrange it. And they were going to send him back before that. My friend, Joe, he wanted to go. Can I go with you? I'll go with you. And he said, no. But Al Bielik must have looked like he was 70 years old. White skin, white hair, kind of his eyes closed, and he looked like he was dying. 6 months later, I saw him. We talked. They said they can't kill him until a certain date. I'll explain that in a second. But he looked about 25 years younger at least. His skin was pink. His eyes were wide open. His hair was black. He could have dyed his hair, but he looked like a different person. All right. So when he told me, he said, look, there's an anniversary of the cycle of the Philadelphia experiment every 20 years. Do you remember? Just think about this, people. They never said why. We had a blackout from Canada down to Florida for a few hours, and nobody ever tried to ask why that happened. It was a cycle of the 20th anniversary of a date of the Philadelphia experiment. Now, what happened during that time, which destroyed and opened up the gates for this planet, was called they opened up a vortex. The government still can't close it, and they're still trying. Stuff from all kinds of universes and everything else is coming into this reality. That's why people are filming creatures and entities and all these things everywhere now, and they can't stop it. So it's been part of my life, and I could throw one other detail, and that's when I met Bigfoot, because we were up at Wanacue Reservoir, and we went up there 5 or 6 days a week, 4 hours a night, filming average 1,000 to 2,000 pictures. All right, but then we went up there one night. I got out of the van and I said, "Let me just take a short walk." I didn't have my belt on, my camera, my knife, my club, my staff, and I went walking. I heard, and I turned around and I started walking into the trees. Right, I just heard the Hershey monkey was released from the Montauk Project. So I said, "Well, maybe that's what it is." And I turn around, blowing down my neck.
You kind of cut out there for a second. What happened?
Oh, yeah.
You turned around?
And this hot air was blowing down my neck.
Oh, my.
And I turned around. Sure enough, it's a Bigfoot just staring straight down at me. The first thing, I reached for my camera, which I didn't have. I reached for anything. I didn't have my belt on. And then it raised its foot and stamped on a log and just snapped it in half. I went running back to the truck. We had a scientist and Sergeant 18 were in it. And I was screaming, "Get the cameras! Get the cameras!" I thought sure it was going to chase me. So I'm just running, hoping that it's following me. And then when I get to the van, the two people I'm with lock the window and door. I'm banging on, "Hey, open the window. Come on out. What's the matter? What's the matter?" And they're shaking their head. The scientist is just frozen solid there. I'm not going to say his name, but he just stood there. Wouldn't move at fraction. And so Joe goes, "I don't deal with creatures." I said, "How do you know Bigfoot's not a creature?" He slowly rolls the window down. "What'd you see? What'd you see?" And then all of a sudden, it was howling. Every 30 seconds, it would do I could do the scream, but I'd wake the whole neighborhood up. But it would do the scream. And he goes, "What the hell is that?" I said, "Well, what do you think it sounds like?" And they finally get him out of the van, and then it went to dead silence. And we were up here for 7 years. And we never heard that sound. Then another sound we never heard in the whole 7 years is about 100 wolves howling. All the mountains were screaming. And there were wolves up there. I mean, there wasn't like hundreds of wolves in it because we saw wolf tracks in the snow when we were out there at night. But we never saw one and never heard one. And right after the thing with the Bigfoot, we heard all this howling. "Get in the car, let's go." And then we drove away. But that was the first time I was close to a Bigfoot. I came close to him many other times, but that was the first time. So when people say Bigfoot's not real, I said, well, it's real. I mean, I danced all over the United States for 25 years. Did I got any time?
We got like 20 seconds. I'm going to get you to hold that thought right there as we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Tommy Hawksblood is here, and we're talking UFOs, ET encounters, cryptid encounters, spirituality. How is it all connected? So far, it's mainly interesting. And we are going to continue this path when we return on Spaced Out Radio. Tommy Hawksblood, his website, adventuresintothe.strange.com. And I think we're going to get strange here in the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio when we return on the mighty SOR. Stay tuned. All right, we're clear.
Okay. Oh, man.
Good start, man. We need that big.
Okay,
we need that Bigfoot scream, though. We do. Now, come on, give it to us.
No, really?
Why not?
My partner's very sickly.
Oh, okay.
And she's trying to go to. She didn't sleep in 4 days. She just had a heart pacemaker put in. I don't. The whole neighborhood hears me when I do my shows sometimes, and I scream. We heard you. But I would describe it as half slight of a baby cry with the howl of a wolf, magnified like maybe 25 times. So it was scary. The sound echoed all through the mountains. So when you watch these shows and they play the sound, and they try to imitate it, it's very faint of what it would sound like. Realize their bellow, their chest is so big when they scream, it echoes. So it's a loud sound.
1 second here. Hey, Cousin Gary, if you're still watching, okay, good. I'm gonna get you something here, Cousin Gary. My cousin is watching right now, so All right, we're good. You can chat.
Okay, well, let me just finish a little bit. I mean, on a Bigfoot story, that was like the day I was out there without my cameras, without my staff and everything. The next day we went out there during the day to see if we could find any residue. We found a big wood hut, which it probably made to stay in. And we're walking along, and I look down and I see this white creature running across the ground. Now, I did mention about the Hershey monkey, right?
Yeah.
All right. They said it escaped from Montauk. But I saw this creature running. I said, what is it? And I started running after it, and this is no lie. I chased it maybe a block, or less than a block, and it jumped right into a tree. The only problem was there was no hole in the tree. So I assumed that's what it had to be, because nothing else could do that, or would do that, or try to do that. So yeah, it was the other part that I also believed in, because they said, well, that was just a myth about the Hershey monkey and all that, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to tell you this, in my life, I got to see just about everything there is, from this realm all the way up to the higher realms of God. And I'm serious about that. And anybody wants to debate me or talk about it or deal with it anytime, I do workshops on it, trying to help people to get to those places, but it's not the easiest thing to do. And you have to worry about the word that people don't believe in is karma. And you just can't pay to get rid of it. You can't have somebody else pay to take it away from you. You can't do any of those kind of things. It's something soul within itself, which what you are, has to pay off. And that's the number one thing. But most people don't leave this world. We'll get into that, because it's called attachment. And I call them the 5 passions of the mind, which keep soul here. But for me, I was trying to stay away from the UFO world, being pulled into it every chance. I'd be on the highway, and this pulsating circular ship would follow me for half a road, half of the way. I was staying with a medicine woman for 26 years, and we did ceremony out on the tip of Long Island. And when I was driving out there, this ship followed me all the way out. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And then they were going to a bar to drink. The whole ceremony was over, and it was the following night. And I said, no, I don't drink. I'm just going to hang out by the ocean. That night, these black helicopters came over me, and they had lights all over the ground, like shining it this way and that way, looking for something. And then all of a sudden, they all just disappeared right above my head. So the technology was there in about 98, 99, for helicopters to disappear. I mean, see, when they tell you we're up to date with equipment, weapons, and planes, we're not even close to where they are or were a long time ago that I have personally seen. I'm just going to throw this in because I'll probably forget it. I live in Hawaii. I'm on the Big Island. I was going downtown to the town, to go to the bank. The bank was closed. I usually carry 2 cameras on me. All right, and I was coming out of the bank. This giant triangle ship came right up out of the mountain, up this way, about maybe 40, 50 feet from my head. It sounded like my head was going to blow apart. I grabbed my phone, and it just froze. I grabbed my other camera, and it froze. And I heard bang, so loud.
Okay.
And it was gone. It was out there, gone. All right. So I went into town and asked everybody in town.
I got to get you to hold on right there because we're like 10 seconds away from coming back here on the radio side. Hold on. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Tommy Hawksblood. His website is adventuresintothestrange.com, and we're getting strange tonight, and I absolutely love it. And he's an author of 4 books. You can find them on his website and online. Tommy, welcome back.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome back. I'm going to miss a lot of my life because I did so many things. It's hard to keep it all together. Because when I was younger, let me just throw this in before I forget all about it. When I started doing hypnosis at 14, I became a high priest at 16. I had my own covenant. Had 13 people in my covenant. I didn't follow anybody else's teachings. I created what I did and how I worked it myself. I didn't bring sex into it like a lot. When I finally got this one witch book and they said all about demon sex and all this other stuff. But no, I considered myself a witch. I always use the word witch, not a warlock. I mean, a witch is a witch to me. Warlock just means, well, a male and female. A witch is a witch. So when I was a high priest, I ended up challenging the mob's high priest. I challenged a lot of these people claiming to be these high black priests and things like that. I was a rebel, but I knew I was always protected, and they knew it when I challenged them. So during that time frame, I started challenging God because now I was working with there's 32 psychic abilities. I was working with most of them. And I said, well, God, prove that you're real. I said, Satan. And I would I challenged him because I split up my wife at the time. And I challenged both of them. I said, one of them, prove who you are. Prove that you're better than the other. I said, burn this block down. And that's what I said. Or tear this whole block out. And I waited. And I said, neither one of you are going to answer my question. But that was because I was super depressed. But actually, God healed me. I had a serious problem. All right, I was going to have my stomach cut out, and I said, God, I can't live like this. And within the following day, my stomach was healed. When I went to the hospital, they said, your peptic granuloses are gone. So I believe that happened. I mean, I learned to work with God rather than Satan. But during the other thing I wanted to say, when I work with the dark side, I mean, I say dark and light. I really was working from the light. Dark means you hurt somebody or kill somebody. The light means you try to save or help somebody. So that's the way I word white witch, black witch. Moses basically was the highest black witch that lived on the planet. All right? Because of what he did, the amount of people that he had killed and things like that. But I don't want to get into that right now. But here's the thing. When I was doing all that, I learned 30 psychic abilities. What you could do with them if you use them.
I got to ask
Not
you.
Not one of them. Go ahead. Sorry.
How do you have so many psychic abilities?
How do you? All right. Let me tell you this. Atlantis, everybody had them. We all had 32 psychic abilities. We didn't have to talk. You couldn't steal. You didn't rob. We didn't eat meat. We didn't kill each other. It was incredible. It was the Garden of Eden until 2 alien races came there. All right, and then they destroyed it. But there were 9 races there originally, 9 different colored races. 5 races left, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing about it, but the blue race, the green race, the purple race, the crystal race, they all left. They rose in awareness and decided they didn't even want to stay there. The red, black, yellow, and white race were still there when these reptilians and grays, and not the grays, they didn't come down and do that, but the other races that came down and destroyed Atlantis. When it was going down, I was gone. So I didn't see the final touch of how they ended it all. But I do know this. My next reincarnation, they were all programmed already for killing, sacrifice, and eating animals. So in that interim, they were taught that. Everybody said they came here to mine gold and all that. Realize, if aliens ever wanted gold, they could make it. They could make it then. We can make gold now. It costs more money to make it. But imagine the technology they had 500,000 years ago. It's a lot different than what we have now. So, but again, they said they came here for gold. They didn't come here for gold. All right, I'm going to say this. This might upset many, many people. Aliens only have one agenda. What's the world agenda? What's our agenda on this planet? To feed the homeless? To put the homeless people up on Mars? What is our agenda? Each country has their kind of own set agenda, all right, which is their truth, all right. But again, does it fit together? Is it going to be beneficial? Now, if I'm going to send a ship up, I'm going to take some of the homeless people, some of the drug addicts, and put them all on the same ship and then send them to a place to do what I tell them to do? Of course not. The people they send here are intelligent beings, and not the people that would protest and fight and all those kind of things. So when people say, well, there's good and bad in everything. Yeah, but they're not here. The ones that kill humans and eat humans aren't good. Well, in their race it might be, but not ours.
You've been taken enough.
No, I've never been on a ship.
Okay, I have.
You have, but they can't touch me. All right? Go ahead.
But my question is this. I mean, there are people all over this planet who claim to have had positive ET encounters. Are those false happenings, or is it the fact that, I mean, I look at it just like people. I've had the good encounters, the bad encounters, and the terrible encounters. But I also look at it like people, though. One sec. I look at it like people, though, where not everybody on this planet is a good human being. So we can't really judge all human race on one bad person.
Right. Okay. No, I understand what you're saying, and that's the way most people think. All right. Soul is here for a reason. What we are inside this is here for a reason. Aliens don't have the same reason, first off. Second of all, what you're saying is, okay, and I'm going to tell you, I proved this when I was 14. You can make anybody do anything you want them to do, even killing a person. I even proved that in front of my brother. I had my two friends. One went to stab him. I had to jump right in it. But you can make people do anything you want. I worked with an army hypnotist, and he worked with people in the army, saying you can hypnotize people to do that. Why I'm saying this, when Truman released his friends saying, okay, you could take 10,000 people, they could not remember what happened. But what happened with Barney Hill? When these people suddenly started remembering it, it was too hard to cover it up. They gave him false information. Now, I mean, Corey Good, he said, oh, the aliens showing all these videos of what's going to happen in his life and this. And they could show you anything they want. I know that for a fact. But so can demons. And people don't want to understand that demons are just as real right now. Why this world was created, this is hell. You don't go to a worse place than this ever. This is the only place in all the universes where you can feel pain, see pain, sense pain, watch pain of your children, your family, and you see all this destruction. You can't see that on the higher worlds because you can't kill a soul. Soul is eternal. So this is as low as so. So when Dante's Inferno came out and said the 7 levels of hell, just look around you, you'll see the different levels of hell. Having your hand cut off, your head cut off, or whatever, you'll understand the differences. But as far as basically, when we say an agenda, what do all things that live need? Food. All right? No matter what you say, what race, where you come from, you all need food. And I'll tell you, tall whites like strawberries. But outside of that, guess what the reptilians like? Guess what the Greys eat? All right, I can go into detail about that. But here's the thing, people. People don't want to hear that. The UFO world doesn't talk about that. Phil Schneider's story very seldom gets mentioned. And that's just like one of the most important UFO stories that ever happened to this planet. All right, when all those Green Berets got killed and stuff, nobody cares. And then we got people coming out and say, oh, aliens are good, let's talk to them. What do you think they can tell you? And like that right now, the word is experiencer. And that means they had a good experience. And they'll admit they were standing in their room and they were on the ship and they went to dinner and all these stupid stories they come up with. Basically, come back with an artifact and prove something's important. Now, this is another thing most people do not know. My brother's drummer was really close to John Lennon. He was his drummer on a couple shows and different things like that. He actually got John Lennon's ranch when John Lennon died. All right, killed. But in the interim, John Lennon was sitting in New York City with a person I know. His name's Uri Geller. And there was a concert going on. And Uri Geller says, why don't you go up and play with them? And he goes, I think I will. But he pulls out of his pocket a crystal and gave it to Uri Geller. And said, they gave it to me. I don't want it. He was abducted in New York City. All right. I don't know how much. Oh, no, I tried getting in touch with her so many times and she won't reply. When I saw her in person, she had 12 bodyguards around her. All right. But in the interim, she won't talk about it. And she's talking about world peace and everything right now. So Uri Geller just came out last week telling the Navy, get ready for an alien invasion. I don't know if he had any connection with that crystal that John Lennon gave him, whether they got in touch with him or not, or how that works. But Uri Geller was a top psychic. He claimed to be, and everybody tried to put him down. I mean, The Men Who Stare at Goats was based on his story. But I was trying to bring him on my show a couple times. I got him on my friend's show, made me read his book because he worked for FBI, CIA, and he was sending out signals to kill things. But that was a whole nother ball game that I got involved with. But let's bring it back to more present of what I was going through.
Right. I do want to hit you up with one question. Those 32 levels of intuition or psychic levels, abilities. Mm-hmm. Is there a list of those somewhere? I'm very interested in it.
I could give them to you. Now, try not to pull it up a line because you're going to end up with like 128. Because right now they call throwing bones, throwing ash, and turning cups over and things like that, or symbols and psychic teachings and work. The 32 basically have to do with your mind, your eyes, the energy you create and send. All right, levitation is one of them. Clairvoyancy, deja vu, telepathy. I mean, the way they describe them, and then to be able to see into the future, see into the past. And I mean, there are 32, but I mean, I've added maybe 5 because they are ones that actually you can use the same way, but not into tea leaves and all that stuff man created to do readings, card reading, the pendulum that Kreskin created, all right, way back when he created that instead of the Ouija board. But the abilities, just to show you, we all have the smallest abilities. You ever in a car driving next to another car and you turn around because somebody looked at you? That's a sense. That's a sixth sense. All right, that's part of a clairvoyance, audience. We have a lot of abilities. Soul travel, astral travel, all right, are 2. Soul travel is the only important one. Astral travel is the beginning steps of it. Remote viewing is evil. All right, I can go into the steps but these 32 assets, I can tell you the list next time because I had to do a show on that once too as well. So what are all of them? What do you do with them all? Well, Jesus didn't use all his abilities. He didn't go around levitating mountains or anything like that. But he did almost everything else. Healing. Raising the dead, which very few souls have ever done. All right. Guess what? I only found out, I didn't go into the story yet, but I'm aware of all my past lives. I was alive in Atlantis. I was alive many times up until the point Jesus was born. I was a female. Mary Magdalene was my closest friend. During that time frame, Jesus came there. And I got to be with Jesus the last months of his life as well. I watched what happened. I would listen to what he taught. He didn't teach one thing in the Bible. All right. I mean, he did lecture to the people on the mountain, simple talk. But when he was teaching his people. You don't teach love and you don't teach protection. All right. What he was teaching the disciples was the abilities to raise the dead and heal people and all those kind of things. So why do you think they were out to kill all of them? All right. Mary Magdalene did have Jesus' baby. It was a female. And right after she finished teaching Peter and the rest of the disciples, because they didn't want to listen to a girl for a while, and they finally realized that they wanted to see Jesus again, they had to. I mean, that part of it's in the Bible, scribbled in there a little bit, but basically after they learned, Mary Magdalene left, and so did Thomas. Thomas went to India and started teaching his religion in India. And that's when they said Jesus went to India, and they said, because they had long hair. They didn't have name tags and things like that to prove who they were. And he was doing Jesus' teaching, so they just called him Jesus. So I can go on to that, because at that point, I had to say goodbye to Mary Magdalene because she had to leave the country. And she actually went out to France. But out of all my time doing my study, research, and going back in my past lives, I didn't know this. In France, right now, they got the skull of Mary Magdalene on this giant, beautiful crystal thing and stuff in a temple. And thousands of people go there all the time. And I just got the picture on my cell phone right now. But what they say, they think it's the most spiritual artifact on the planet. They said if they take it out of there, it could probably heal people. All right? I only heard this. I only found this out. If I was younger, I would have went to France. But I only heard about it now. So there's things that I learned that can help me where I'm at. I mean, even if it's just for her ashes, I mean, her real ashes, and just to say peace and make peace with her in this world. But that's my trip. But I learned why I came here after I left Jesus, after they all died, and why I back again to this planet. There's only one reason why soul comes here, people. It's not to make friends with aliens. It's not to talk to aliens. It's not to travel on ships. It's not to have a prom. It's not to have a horse racing stable or anything like that. One reason. Souls here not for pleasure. And the only thing humans want is pleasure. So it's a great program that man has accepted. I mean, in weightlifting, it's no pain, no gain. So it's just the opposite. So the truth is, we're here to learn some things that we don't ever get taught. They don't teach anything spiritual in school. They don't teach anything spiritual in church. They don't teach spiritual things in spiritual workshops. All they tell you is you're spiritual. Raise your vibration. When you raise your vibration, things will break around you. Take a tuning fork, a high-pitched tuning fork, and hit it and put it next to a glass. You'll see it shatter. When your vibration raises, the area around it can't survive it. The deities that come here are lower in vibration than the higher deities because they could destroy this planet. I dealt with Shiva, the god of birth and death and everything else. So when I worked with him, I actually had him within me, working within me, I should say. Everywhere I went for a year, and this is no lie, everybody had a major disaster happen instantly when I stood before them. I mean, they just call me bad luck. And I could feel Shiva just saying, your karma's coming right now.
I want to ask you, so we got about 5 minutes to go. I apologize. Okay. Out of everything, if aliens are bad and evil, what else is bad and evil that people within the phenomena are practicing? So far, you've said aliens. So far, you've said time travel. What about things like remote viewing or astral projection or anything like that? Well, I just
mentioned remote viewing's evil. Astral projection's different. Remote viewing, you're invading a person's space. Astral projection, you're going into your own space. Your free will to go into the astral plane, but you're not going to get anywhere. When you do remote viewing, you're going, I'm going to go in that person's house. I'm going to go on the other side of the field and see where the army is. George Washington in New York City, in Madame Jumel's house, which I did UFO ghost busting and release for maybe 3 years. has a picture on a wall with George Washington floating over the army, looking at where they were and everything, and then coming back into his body. And that's how he won the war. So, I mean, and then he put out a prophecy of eight angels he met. So George Washington was a little bit more spiritual than I would imagine him to be. I mean, with all the killing of the native people and everything else they were doing. But when I saw that, when I was in that house, it was amazing because Madame Jumel went to work with England with Napoleon. And then she got thrown out of there. But then she came back, and then Samuel Jumel was killed somehow in the room. We were never allowed in that room, but I freed all the spirits that died in that house. 20th Century Fox came out there to do a movie. They wanted us to do the movie with them. And I was working with one of the top psychics in the United States. Her name was, well, I'm not going to say her name, but she was one of the most famous, rated by the New York Psychic Center. We used to work together 6 days a week. She'd channel anything she could get that we asked it for, that I would, from one of the Stones who was killed in the pool. I mean, she channeled a lot of different things I asked her. She would channel Ludwig Beethoven, and she would just play any song he wrote, crystal clear. I mean, but she channeled a young boy that I went fishing with, and I proved everything she said. Everything she said to me, I made sure I proved it. So she goes, well, this boy came in, and he goes, can I go fishing with you? I said, sure you can. So when I went on this fishing trip, I said, I just said, okay, I'm glad you're here. And then when I went back, she goes, oh, and then she just started talking like him. Oh, when you pulled in that fish and that guy tried to grab, and he said the whole thing straight out. So I kind of learned about different kind of spirits, how they work, how they don't work. I did a lot of demon possessions, working on that, exorcisms. Those spirits are just as evil. We're getting back to the point, aliens are good. All right, they never helped mankind in 40,000 years. They never gave us anything beneficial, and no man made anything spiritual in that whole time. All right? So when I say this, I look at everything being done now, what's happening, what's going to happen. We're in serious conditions. And when all these New Age people, all these UFO people, everybody's talking about the good aliens, we're going to raise the vibration of the planet. It would shatter. It's not ready for it. The Earth's okay where it is. It doesn't need people on it. When we say help the Earth, it would be good if everybody got off it. It could do what it normally does. Now, I don't want to get into weather and all that because that's a different subject. But there is reasons why that's happening. Aliens are part of it, and so is the government. But we're in a planet now that aliens are coming to. And why? And you have to say, why would they come here? Why would they want to clone with us? I'll go into another story about that. But basically, they come here, they want what we have. Aliens need three things, people. If they abduct you and they take you on a tour of the ship and they show you this stuff, when they pass you out and put you on a table, they only want a few things from you.
What do they want?
Blood, semen, and ovaries. They don't need your brain. They don't need your heart. They don't need your liver. And I could tell you this. I went to a base where they were I saw the video where they're cloning graves. They put in this giant sack of blood, and that's how the government's doing it, the U.S. Army. All right, and that's up in Flagstaff. The base is up there. All right.
Is that an alien base or a human base?
It's a human. It's alien. I mean, it's human base cloning aliens, and I will tell you why. I probably know a little more about Denver Airport than most people. But if you ever read the book, Behold the Pale Horse, it explains what was going on when they built Denver Airport.
All right.
It's actually an airport base for ships to come in the future.
All right. I'm going to get you to hold on right there and hold that thought because we are going to come back after the break with hour number 2 of Tommy Hawksblood tonight. Lots of information running overboard. Tommy's feeding us a good lesson here tonight. His website is adventuresintothe.strange.com. We'll be back with hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio. So make sure you all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we're clear. Good job, my man.
No, if I disappear, you'll probably know why. I usually don't go into these subjects too much, but I'm not like a person that hides from the truth ever. I'll die with my truth. I'm not going to live by somebody else's, especially the governments or somebody else out there. No religious person either. So I spent my time in religion. I spent my time studying. I spent my time in every aspect of life. I had 5 death experiences, and each one taught me something incredibly different. And I challenge a lot of the people that have the death experience because they don't really remember what went down. And we should talk about that a little bit because I think people need to know what happens when a person dies.
Sure.
And what they don't remember and all those kind of things. But
sure.
I spent a lot of time on the astral plane before I got out of it. I watched souls come and go. All right. Aliens are reincarnating into humans now. And a lot of people think they're human. Well, they say they're walk-ins and things like that because of that. All right. There's a lot of other reasons, too. I mean, another book you should all read, Barbara Messiniak, Bringers of the Dawn. She talked about how the alien races have their grid work around the planet and absorb souls that go through it. All right. If you're an unaware soul, you're a danger to yourself and to everything. Because if you can't get to the astral plane, you're going to stay here as a ghost or a spirit. If you get to the astral, the borderline between the astral plane and the physical realm, and aliens are there, they can use you. All right? And nobody can talk about that either. But Barbara Messiniak did many, many years ago, because that's what she was dealing with. But there's a lot of things, scientists in the UFO world, they don't talk about it. They can't, because they didn't experience it. Again, it's really hard to talk about something if you didn't see it, feel it, or experience it. Well, when I was on the astral world, I watched these souls come, they hang out there, and they leave. Time's so different there. Your time there will be 5 to 10 years, average. And then you'll be reincarnating again. That's the time frame. But those 5 to 10 years, you could do billions of things that you would take hundreds of years to do here. So it's helping soul to grow, but when it comes back here, the mind blocks everything out. And soul has to start all over. It's a really hardcore trip. And now when we talk about aliens, I said, well, I wish they could tell me something important. They're going to tell me something about God that I don't know? Really? Can they? Do they know anything about it? So when I talk to people, when I do my workshops, I say, this is what you're going to have to do. Certain kind of exercises and things, and you're going to have to put the time in. It's not a matter what I do. If you want the truth, you have to work for it. Nobody on this planet is going to give you the truth. And especially an alien or Bigfoot. I mean, I study with all the native elders, not study with, I work with a lot of the native elders in the United States. They talk about the star beings. They don't even know what race it was. But they never helped them. They talked about working with Bigfoot. Bigfoot never helped them. There was 50 million native people. 49 million were killed within 400 years. Did any race or any alien race help them? No.
What about what about free will on that, though?
Free will? We don't have free will on this planet. We want to. We want to believe we do. Can you do anything you want and not go to jail?
No, I live under a Trudeau government.
We all live under a sick government. I mean, we shouldn't talk about that. But we all live under complete control.
We don't talk politics as long as it's about Justin Trudeau and the way he's hiding from his citizens. So, anyways, okay. Move on from there.
Okay, but we're all prisoners of somebody's law. And I can go into when Thomas Jefferson and his crew stole the Constitution from the native people. And they stripped them of being part of it. And then they created the Constitution. If you know all the symbols about the Constitution, what it says, it's all based on the eagle with the arrows in his talons. And basically, when they formed the 5 tribes, the native tribes, before they killed them, all right. So it's a sad story, but who was it? Only rich people. I'm a rebel. I'm hardcore against rich people, especially those big name people. The 3 of them up there right now. I write them letters every day. And I give them I say, you want to watch a show? You want to hear the truth about something? Listen. Because somebody can't even talk about what's causing the problems to the planet right now. I mean, we're dealing with this stuff. Aliens going through the space doesn't do the same thing. Our ship going through the space, the ozone, is we destroy it. We're not using that technology everywhere. And if Mr. Musk puts 1,600 chips up there in the next year, he's going to burn holes in the ozone. Alaska has the biggest hole in the ozone. Do you know why? It has the biggest army base on the planet in Alaska. It's owned by British and the United States. All right. That's very little known facts, but it's real, people. Check it out.
All right, my friend. We got about 25, 30 seconds here. I'm going to get you to hold on. Thank you to Dirt Road ×2, Thomas and Kevin for the super chats. It is a wonderful way to support this show on a nightly basis. I'm going to put a link in here into the chat room, too, as well. It's to Merle's and myself's brand new creepypasta channel called Canada's Great Unknown. I'd love it if you guys go out there, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, as we started growing that channel on Monday. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. Thank you to all the veterans who are tuned on in. Really appreciate you guys. And here we go, everyone. Put your questions in capital letters if you're in the chat room. Hour 2 is now.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us tonight, Clam? Kaleidophone. Kaleidophone is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok, Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Tommy Hawksblood, UFOs, ETs, ET contact, spirituality. Where are we going? His website is adventuresintothestrange.com. Highly suggest you check it out. Tommy, welcome back.
Greetings. So let's see which way we want to go from where we left off. For me, my life's been a really hard journey. Would I ever want to do it again? Of course not. Would I want to ever get involved with UFOs? Never. Would I want to be involved with this whole thing? No. I mean, I wanted a normal family life. I would have been super happy if I had it. But I had serious problems with relationships when that happened. And the child was, I don't want to get into it all, but it destroyed me, my relationships that I did have. And then I kept my search for spiritual truth, finding what God truly is. I searched 14 religions in detail. I mean, I was baptized 14 in the Protestant religion. I went to the Catholic religion. I went to the Jewish, Jehovah's Witness, Hare Krishna. Then I started studying Tibetan religions and every other path. And I was trying to find which one could have any kind of conversation about a real God. Then I, just recently, a couple of years ago, I met Mr. Conversation with God, and I challenged him about 5 times, and we talked. I met everybody out there, mainstream. All right? And I Saved by the Light. All right? Even that person, I challenged him in front of 13 people at a dinner party at a UFO conference. And when he stood up and talked, I was blown away because he told the truth. And he said, and I don't want to say the whole thing again because he said it to us in front of 13 people, but he did admit it. Who he was, where he was from, why he's going to have to reincarnate many more times. And that's why he does so much for hospice. You'd be surprised the truth behind people. I went to do a show. This person said, I'll bring you on a show and you can debate anybody that comes on with the truth. The second show, I had Michael Horn on.
Wow.
I let him, you know who he is, right?
Oh, yeah.
I had him on for a half hour, let him talk. And then I asked him 3 questions. I said, tell me the truth about these. And he said, you want to do? And he just hung up and got off the show.
Oh, you
but
got a lucky one.
Then I brought Laura Eisenhower on my show. And she stayed the whole time. She said, I agree with everything you say. She doesn't know much about her grandfather at all. But she goes, oh, I agree. I mean, she claims she's a majestic and all that. But after the show, she said, I want to bring you on mine. I said, okay, goodbye. I listened to 3 of her shows and realized she was thinking the opposite of me completely. So I said, I'll never get to go on her show, and I don't want to, because she's into this love and light thing and change the world and do prayers for this and that and everything. I'm not there. So, I mean, when I deal with people, the good people in the UFO world, I was friends with the ones that died. Fred Bell, all right, he was probably the most important person out there as well. He was working with Billy Meyer's ship's alien friends, all right. He created a lot of devices and things. His family's still selling those devices, nuclear reactors and things like that. But when he was killed 2 days after he did the show with Jesse Ventura said, aren't you afraid to get killed? And he goes, no, I work for the government. And he goes, well, what about me? He goes, you're too high up. 2 days later, Fred Bell was found in a hotel room dead. He told me a lot of things because he said, I don't talk about these things publicly. I mean, I got his book. His book's fun. A really important book. Explains 90% of the UFO world. How the ships work. He worked on the HARP system for the government. The most deadliest weapon we have in the United States. He blew the house up next door and things, but I mean, he was really cool. So when I talk about people I met in the UFO world, he could lecture about aliens. I mean, he was with the Pleiadians and stuff. So they're as real as they get. I mean, when I saw my first alien, and you know, I hate to admit this, the first alien I ever saw in my house looked like the same way James Gillian describes his alien that he works with.
Right.
He gave her a name, but mine was the same. But mine didn't do anything. I mean, it was just walking around, and then we chased it out. But it was the same race, whatever. But that was the first alien I saw. When we started working up in Wanakee, New Jersey, when I met Sergeant 18, he was a high priest witch of the town, and the whole town was run by witches, and I don't even know much about that. But Wanakee, New Jersey, the whole city, the whole main street is owned by a couple witches. Right. And I mean, they got the symbols on the churches and everything. But we found this giant castle inside the middle of the jungle. And the Pentagon's right across the whole top of it. But in the interim, he was chased by the one that ran it, the head witch there, and he chased him out of town and stuff like that. Because he started working for the government. And he was doing reading, my friend was working for the government, giving readings and stuff for them. But when we made friends, I came into his house, and I walked in his house, and he goes, I'm going to be downstairs. So I walked down the stairs, and it's a big black pentagram on the floor, and there's this staff and everything laying next to it. He goes, who are you? I said, Tommy. So I walked into the center of the pentagram and grabbed his staff and put it in the center of the pentagram. He started screaming, who the hell are you? What are you doing? You're going to die. I said, I'm not going to die. And he says, who are you? And then we made friends.
Nice.
From that day on, we went up to Wanakee, New Jersey, 5 or 6 days a week. We'd get there at about anywhere between 9 and 10 and stay there till 3 o'clock in the morning, taking pictures all night. We started with a Polaroid camera, which was so expensive. Trying to get a couple hundred rolls of pictures done is expensive, especially at that time. I sold all my cameras, which was worth about maybe $4,000 for my first digital camera. And it saved us a lot of money for developing pictures. But we still shot 2,000, 3,000 pictures a night. He would download them and everything else, and we'd go over them. When we first brought the pictures to the print shop, they would turn around and say, well, a lot of these didn't come out. I said, we want every picture, good, bad, or indifferent. And I always told them that because they would say, well, this has a big spot on it. This has a weird thing in it. And I said, no, that's what we want to keep. So we got all these pictures of the things. We have thousands. Well, he copyrighted all our pictures, all of them. All right. But I can show them because I was there when it was filmed. I can go into some of the things that we filmed that were incredible that no UFO person could explain. He shot a picture of me from the back of me with the silhouette of me looking back at me. And the lighting was on the opposite side, so it wasn't like the lighting hit this or the things like that. And we sent it out to everybody to see if they could figure out what it was, and they couldn't. But in the interim, we were the first people to go to New York City and declare orbs. We said we can film anywhere we go, anytime. And there was about 250 people in the room, and I shot the camera for a half hour while he was talking. And I said, well, let's look at the pictures now. There were orbs in all the pictures, every one of them. And in the interim, we got a picture. I have a picture of this lady with this white beam coming down her. And I said, wow, check that out. So I was at the door waiting and watching everybody leave. And she never left. I mean, I wanted to talk to her. I said she must be an alien or something weird. But I never got to see her leave that room.
Right.
But from then on, we started lecturing. We lectured for global sciences for 6 years around the United States. Every twice a year in different parts of the United States. I got to meet all the UFO people. I was going to build a spiritual city 24 years ago with a couple famous people. I'm not going to say all the names, but we had 5 people. We're going to open up a spiritual city. They wanted $1.5 million for this castle that was created by an alien. I mean, the woman had the aliens to guide her to build it. It had an underground swimming pool, a satellite antenna on the top, and it was 1 mile from the main road and all this. And we said, this is a perfect place for a spiritual city. And then they were all fighting. Crazy. And it was like, I said, well, this isn't going to happen. And it didn't.
I want to get some audience questions here because they have been lining up here for you, my friend, if you don't mind.
No problem. Go
and
ahead.
let's start off with Marilena here. Are you sure that what you've been told is the truth? There are many truths out there as well as perceptions.
All right. When you say when I was told truth, who told me the truth? I saw it. All right. Now, when it comes to a best friend and you're close to them for a long period of time, can they lie to you? Of course they can. But here's something that you should learn, no matter who you are, is one of the abilities is being able to see a person. You take your eyes and you stare at a person and don't move. If you train yourself, you'll see their aura. Their aura cannot change to whatever they want it to be. It says who and what they are. Whether they're lying or telling the truth, angry or mad, whatever. If you learn to do that, if somebody tells you, well, this is real, and you just look at them and just stare at it, and 91% people won't look back at you because they don't want you to look inside them. Native people won't let you do it. They say you'll steal my soul. They know that in their own way, I should say. But if you do that, if you learn that, if you see people's auras, you'll know who and what they do, what they are. If they smoke, they'll have a gray cloud around them with lines going through it, holes going through it. If they're angry, there'll be a red aura around them. I mean, the auras are real critical. You can't change your aura unless you change who you are. I mean, if you're a gold spiritual being, which there aren't any, but if you're a spiritual person at any level, you're going to radiate blue, white, or yellow. All right, I had a picture taken me in New York City by the Honora plate company that was there. And after she took it, she goes, I want you to travel with me. I said, no, thank you. But she said, this is the highest light ever coming down into a body. I had 5 native people and 1 regular psychic tell me within 3 months that I had the most important mission to do on this planet. I wish, but they all told me the same thing. I was brought into the medicine room cat trailer that the one medicine woman was in. She said that you got to come after the dancing tonight to my cabin. So I went there, and she said the same thing. She goes, you got the most powerful light going through you. But she said there's something in your heart, which there was. All right, I don't want to go into that, but it was destroying me as well. But then the medicine woman I actually studied with for maybe 15 years, one of them, it was two sisters, but the one I studied with 15 years, she was a pipe carrier, and she said to me, she gave me a brooch that was 125 years old, green turquoise. She said, this will protect you. All right, and she says, I hope, and this is what she said to me, I'm not making this up, I didn't ask for it. She goes, I really hope with who you are and what you're going to do, you choose to save the planet rather than destroy it. And that's what she told me then. And I stayed with her for years. And then I started doing moon ceremony with her sister until I was like 26 years later. So I made it to the highest level a man can make. I did step into a circle that I should have never stepped into and got all the power of the circle, which was outrageous. I mean, one lady, the medicine woman, goes, you could have died, you could have died, you could have died. I said, but I didn't. So, but there's a lot of things when you say truth. Everybody wants to believe in the truth. It's truth. Is it good or bad to beat somebody up? And most people accept one truth over the other.
True. Let's get to another question here. Michael is asking, is remote viewing part of the dark arts?
Of course it is. The reason why, there's a spiritual law that exists which nobody follows, and it's called the law of non-interference. That's the first spiritual law. Meaning, you can't invade somebody's space unless you ask to come into it. Like, I'm going to heal the whole planet. You don't have the right to do that. All right, and you can't, but besides the point. But I was good at doing remote viewing, but here's the thing. If you go into somebody's house, you go into a bar, you go into a room, you're invading a space that you weren't invited into. It could be used good or bad, but usually it's just, let's see what's happening or whatever. I mean, I had a man, I was working on a job, and he told me he did that to his sister. He went into he told her to open the book, put it under the pillow. He went there, read the book, and came back, called her up on the phone. She goes, you came to my house and you didn't wake me up to tell me you were here? She goes, I'm still home. So he proved to himself that he could actually remote view. So it's a real thing, but it's not beneficial for spirit. I mean, if you're going into a bank and trying to see the combination or something like that, is it good? You go into another country to see where the army is to blast them apart. It's always used for a defense or a weapon, however you want to use it. And what I'm saying is the psychic abilities that mankind has is a weapon. All right. So that should answer that question about remote viewing.
All right. Well, let's head to another question here as we continue on with Spaced Out Radio. Tommy Hawksblood is our guest. We got about 6.5 minutes left. Eddie is asking, do aliens and demons have emotions?
Aliens do not. They're void of feelings and emotions. Now, on the other hand, demons have emotions, hate, anger, and all those kind of things. And they push that out on. They use people. Now, I hate to tell people this, and I know they're not going to believe me. The biggest percentage of this planet is controlled by demons right now, not aliens. Look at what people do. How a man could punch a girl, hit a child, abuse a child, any of those things. What kind of person would do that? So you have to realize something's controlling them. I mean, sure, they got into heavy drugs. I mean, that's another force that you shouldn't be into, which pulls you into more negativity. So we're getting deeper and deeper into the dark side at every level. I mean, look at the sexual games. I went into a sex club. I was with living with a millionaire family, and she made me come join this club. I joined the club. I didn't know what it was. And that night, it was
all on, eh?
It was a sex club. 6 days a week, they do different things. I mean, new dancing one night, tortured another night.
Well, remember, this is on terrestrial radio.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Let's go to Eugene's question. Is there a connection between life after death and the aliens?
Life after death and aliens. Yes, for humans. I said aliens are reincarnating back into humans. See, being unaware of what they're supposed to learn, the same as most people are, about the abilities of spirit, not the abilities of a physical body. All right? Aliens are more concerned about the physical body. So they don't have feelings and emotions. So they don't understand when they pull somebody's body parts apart and things like that. They don't understand that either. I mean, they still look at it and try to wonder what's going on. but they don't have the same feelings. So they got to reincarnate as well. But they're reincarnating back as humans rather than aliens because they're moving up the ladder. So humans are, and people won't believe this because they say we're so ignorant, are the most spiritual race in all these lower realms. All the aliens that come here. Realize who controls all the alien races. Only 4 of them do. Well, maybe 6 between that control every alien race out there that are attacking us or using us or coming near us. I mean, you get these other names like Hawksblood brought out the Andromedans and a couple other names. But they never did anything. The Galactic Federation never did one thing. Ashtar Command never did one thing. And they got millions of followers and everything else now. And Stephen Greer is creating his work groups now and everything, how to talk to aliens and stuff. But it's not going to benefit us. It's not going to change our government. People have to realize the only way anything changes, and Jesus even said it, if the laws are unjust, you change them. You don't go against them. Because you go against them, you go to jail. So you do it right, it happens. Oh, somebody threw up there real fast.
Yeah, Johnny is asking, what about orbs? What are they?
All right. Now, I filmed every kind there is. I got a chart of every color, every shape, every size. They're different things. Some of them are ETs within that orb. Some of them are entities within that orb. All right. Some of them are actually ships within inside that orb. I filmed a little ship about this big, no lie, going right around me and stuff in the middle of the jungle up at Wanakoo where the government base was. So they're alive, if you want to say something, or partially live, but they are different. They're not the same. When you get 100 together, I mean, I was dancing when we were going to buy this property to create a spiritual city. I was dancing in front of a fireplace. This baby skull comes up out of the fire, but there was no fire. I mean, the fireplace. And then thousands of orbs came around me. And 3 different people filmed it. I have that picture. But they come to energy. And I proved this over 20 years. Any kind of energy orbs come to it. Sexual energy, happiness, fight, any energy of movement, they'll come to it. Sometimes in large numbers. Just being super happy with a bunch of people, orbs appear. All right. So they're not kind of like social where we can actually start talking to them and have a meal or anything with them. But they're there. They're active. Now, Jose Escamillo, before he died, he was using our videos that we shot. But he called everything rods, and he called them insects. All right? I'm not saying I can't prove that either, because he claimed all the stuff he shot was insects, basically. All those big ships in the sky were creatures, and space creatures, and things like that. But he's no longer here. He used a lot of our videos during his promotion of himself. But the problem is facing what we're really dealing with right now. Is it going to help us? Is it going to hurt us?
We got less than a minute. Gary is asking, you mentioned your past lives. Are you expecting or looking forward to a new next life? 45 seconds.
I know where I'm going in my next life, and I'm not coming back to planet Earth or the astral plane. There's no reason for me to go to either one of them. All right. What will bring most people back is lust, greed, anger, vanity, and attachment. The 5 passions of the mind. All right. So it's not a pleasure to think about coming back here for the people that are ready to go and they're not prepared because they know they created all these problems and didn't solve any. All right. I'm not just talking about owning the government money, but things you do with your body and your hands, your feet, your legs, your eyes, and your mouth. So it's called karma, and that's what make most people come back. I pay my karma off in full.
Right.
I could create karma right now, which I really try to stop. Sorry.
I'll get you to hold on right there. We have Tommy Hawksblood for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. The Woo Train is rolling tonight. His website, check it on out. AdventuresIntoTheStrange.com. We'll be back on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, we're clear.
Okay, everything okay so far? I'm sorry about that. I forgot when I wanted to say, well,
That's
the
okay.
sex club that they made me go to. Yeah, that was bizarre. But
I think everybody wants to hear it now that we're in the break.
well, basically, it's a sex club. It's sex positive in Seattle, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
You got to join because you can't go in there legally unless you join a club. So when you join, you go there. There's 7 days, 7 meetings. Tuesday night's dance night. You could dance naked or not if you want. Wednesday night is torture night, where they got the racks up. They got rooms for every kind of torture. All right. They got group rooms where you could let people come in and watch you if you want. And it's just so crazy. But I did something really important when I was there, believe it or not. I'm working on finish a book right now. And it's a really sad, one of the most horrible things happening on this planet. But I interviewed as many as they could what happened to them when they were little. Every single one of them was sexually abused. All right. And I learned, I knew right from that start. Out of 100 people, they were all sexually abused. Guess what happens when people get sexually abused? It affects them greatly. And it hurts them. So my book's going to be a lot about part of that. A lot more, but...
Gotcha. We'll leave it at that. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. All right. We're about halfway through.
Did you ever hear the name John Edmund?
Sounds familiar.
The Stardust Ranch?
Oh, yeah. John Edmonds. I thought you said Don Edmonds.
No, John Edmund.
Yeah.
I brought him out. I found him. I got him to come out. I worked with him 2 years. We almost did a movie. And then I kind of ended my friendship with him.
Yeah.
All right. I got my friend to do his books for him, everything else. But just the way he treated animals, I couldn't deal with it. And he always had a great story to cover it up. He had 19 horses, 10 dogs. But I don't know to get into it. It's just a bad thing, and I couldn't deal with it. I went there. I stayed there for a week. I got right next to an alien. The medicine woman I brought with me shot a picture of the alien as well. We filmed the demon over his wife.
Oh, that's pleasant.
Really, most scariest looking thing you ever wanted to see. John Edmund has it. If he ever releases it, it would be outrageous because she said, I'm not going to give anybody else a copy. He has the only copy. He can do what he wants with it. But in the interim, I just sent him an email saying, where are you in the UFO world now? Because I thought he'd get big, but he claimed he killed 18 grays. And he said he was killed one when I was on the phone with him, and then he hung up. But when I went out there, I didn't see the damages. I said, where's the blood and all that? And he goes, well, I cleaned the sword off. I said, why would you clean the sword off? And all the things, he always did things that made it just the opposite of being true. Like I said, I look for the truth, period.
Very understandable.
So,
excuse me. All right. We have about 2 minutes here.
Oh, 2 minutes yet?
Yeah.
Well, do you know much about MJ-12?
A little bit.
I was friends with one of them. And we were forced to meet the Men in Black. And we went to dinner with them. And they wanted me and Sergeant 18 to stay with them all night. I said, sorry, I got to go to work the next day, and I left. But one of them that was sitting right next to me knew all about me. And he goes, I deal with UFOs, but I don't know nothing about spirit. And he turned around and he goes, well, look into my eye. And he said, that's a camera. They're filming everything we say and do right now, just so you know. He gave me a video. He gave me a VHS tape. And when I went home to see it, he drives a van. The van's worth $2 million at that time. And he monitors computers within a quarter of a mile. And that's what he does for a living.
Oh, wow.
And they track 450 child porn people in 1 week.
We don't talk kitty porn on this show. Not at all. I will draw the line there.
So, but that's what he did for a living.
Cool.
So for me, I did not keep that tape. I got rid of it. But the other two guys offered us millions of dollars. I mean, they were standard.
Hold on, my friend. Glasses. We got like 5 seconds here. Get you to hold on. I apologize. Here we go. Thank you for the super chats, everyone. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok, Spaced Out Radio. For the final time tonight, author, researcher, experiencer, Tommy Hawksblood is here all the way from beautiful Hawaii. His website, adventuresintothe.strange.com, is where we roll with this one, and we appreciate you coming on in, Tommy. Thank you so much for joining us. And we got a question right off the bat for you from Johnny. What's your thoughts on pre-birth experiences?
Well, I don't want to go into it too long, but I was involved with that in a great way. I had a girlfriend, and we were planning on having a child, and I took her. We went to the astral plane, saw the soul that was going to come in, and she got pregnant, but she did something to get rid of it, and the child never came here. I met with the child and said, you're going to have to find some other place to come into this world. Soul is allowed to come into certain places, depending on their karma, how much they have in the reality that they created in their past life. They have the choice to come into certain realities. Some they're just forced into a situation. You could go to China, you could go to Russia, but some tried it. A lot of people want to come back to their family. If their karma is equally enough for that to happen, they can be born as a grandchild, a grandson. People say, well, my son just acts like my grandfather, or however, and they notice that. But the memory is not fully there. I mean, the child's not going to remember all of that, and the parents aren't going to really know that that's really the grandfather. It's changing. Little by little, the awareness of that is changing and opening up, children being a lot more aware of their past life. I mean, there's some children now that can describe every detail in their past life, names, signs, everything else. So it's opening, but soul's becoming a little more aware in general, not greatly, but there are souls that are starting to wake up, is the way I would put it. So Satan doesn't want that to happen. Aliens don't want that to happen. They like control over people and everything else. It's like, let's take people all away from planet Earth, which needs to happen. All right, this isn't heaven. It never will be. So when people say, well, oh, this is beautiful, everything's beautiful in the eye of a beholder that says it's beautiful. But again, we contaminate the ocean, the air, the water, the ground. So what else can we contaminate? People. But I'm not going to get into that. We don't deal with that right now, and I don't want to. But it's a serious problem what we're going through. And you need to face it. Now, if we have an alien invasion, people say, well, what could happen? My idea, what I see happening, if they decide to come here, it's going to go just down like the movie V. It was a series on TV. If you never watched it, watch it. These fleets of ships went around the planet. Oh, we're going to help you. They start giving them medicine and bringing them up on the ships and training them and everything else. While the queen is making a pot of her children, and then they're going to inject all these people. It's horrible. But it's like the cover-up, they all think they're getting helped. If an alien comes to you, if you have an angel come to you, well, I can help you. They can't interfere with what's going on. Oh, I'm going to help you? Guess what? Bob Dylan came on public TV and said he sold his soul to the devil. And when he did, every song he ever wrote after that went to gold, no matter who he gave it to. And he said, I'm not the only one that did that. But for him to come out publicly and say that, it's kind of bizarre. But when you deal with Satan, it's not like you're aware of a person coming up and say, I want your soul. It's just we have a dark side inside of us that's on the side of soul. If you can't fight it, it kind of tries to take over. Until you can go through that, we will attain pure awareness. It's called the dark night of soul, the darkness within, the dragon. Until you go through that, it's always going to be there. And it's like waiting to pull you into anything it can. And that's why Satan is considered not real. Well, that's not real, but they'll deal with the demon inside. I mean, different religions call it different things, like the dragon or whatever. But it is the dark side. When somebody gets drunk, when somebody does something, they get mad, they turn into another person. That allows that energy to feed through their body. I mean, a nice, innocent person gets mad, turns around and stabs somebody. I mean, it's because that energy is in control now. Soul doesn't have full control of the body, ever. And I give a simple technique how to determine if soul's making you do something, or you're not making you, or mind telling you to do something. It's real simple, but it's a matter of listening to the first thing that pops in your mind or the second thing. Whichever one you find out to be true is the one that will always be true in a matter of a life and death situation. If you're going down the highway at 60 miles an hour and something says, stop right now, and the other thing says, oh, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, and you keep going. There's a one that's telling you what to do, because soul can see before, middle, and after of a situation. They're not in the same time frame we're in. So they will protect you in major situations if you can listen. Very few people can do that even. And it's very simple. Somebody's telling you two different things. Who do you listen to? Well, we either learn it's the first one or the second one. It doesn't change. If it's the second one 3 times, it's always going to be the second one. If it's the first one, you'll know it's always the first one. But for everybody, it's different. But 90% of the time, it's the first one. Because in a situation where it's 2-second chances, stop, and everyone says, no, hurry up. If you stop right away, it could save your life. I'm just telling you, it's a simple technique, and it doesn't take, you can learn it in a week or two. And you should, because you're actually listening to your soul, meaning you, your real self, not the mind. The mind's a computerized program. So, again, we're not a body. We're not permanently here. This body's only temporary. And when you talk about the astral plane, you take on an astral body. And it's a lot different than this. It's not solid. You don't have the same feelings and emotions that you do from the physical reality.
Double Tib wants to know if you ever met Valiant Thor.
You know, I never did. I know a person that did, that worked with him. Now, during that time frame, they had Evie as well. John Edmonds worked with the doctor that worked on Evie. John Thor, I met one of the people that came down with him. All right. Now, there's a woman that claims that she was one of the 7 that came here. She's pretty sickly and elderly now. She's still trying to lecture on and off. Alnick. All right. Listen to her stuff. It's nice. It's part of a religion I was in for 25 years called Ekankar, about the levels of the inner worlds and things like that she explained. They say they were here first. And I challenged her. I said, can you say one thing about Jesus? And she goes, well, I was told, an alien from Venus being told what Jesus was. I said, that's not going to help me. I know what he was. I was just wanting to know if you want the truth. So, again, it's real. He was real. All these stories that they say is just whistleblowers, they're telling parts of the story. There's always a small truth in everything you hear. But like I said, you got to find the truth. Sift out all the useless stuff or the things that aren't really important. Now, if a person came back from an ET experience and said, we have to blow up this mountain today, that would be an actual sign of help, saying that mine was going to blow up and erupt and cause whatever. I mean, if they gave you something to do. Billy Myers, when he came back from his plane up the ship, he had 100 prophecies in 1950. He wrote them on a piece of paper and sent them to every country on the planet. 89 of them came true. All right, in detail. So was Billy Myers working with a prophecy? He was working with aliens. I told them. The same as, I mean, when you talk about who is given prophecies, are they going to help mankind? See, I don't believe it's useful if it doesn't help. Two of my best friends, Sergeant 18, Sean David Martin, both prophesized 9/11 the year before it happened. Sean David Martin predicted all the places that it was going to happen, all right, and the time, and so did Sergeant 18. The day that it happened, neither one went to New York City. No one brought it up on the radio, or TV, or anything. I said, a prophecy is useless if it doesn't help. So I'm at a point where if you're going to make a prophecy, try to make sure that it's going to help people if it happens, which I don't see happening. I hear it over and over. The world's going to come to an end and this, that. What are we supposed to do? What are you going to do?
Well, the world's been coming to an end for 1,000
years. For a long time.
Right? Let's get to Jim's question. Do you have any idea who Mr. Axelrod is?
No, I don't know the name. Maybe I do if I met him or see him, but I don't really think so.
We'll move on here. Philip is asking, what do you mean by the mob's high priest?
All right. I was in Jersey. We had two mobs there, okay? My family was part of one of the mobs. But they have a high priest come in and do readings for them. I mean, they'd sit at the table, they all put their guns on the table, and he would read for them, telling them. And then they would put spells on people they wanted to take out and things like that. It was bad. It wasn't a good thing. But I challenged the high priest himself. And he went to come to the house, and he ran away. He did. And then the girl that he was with said to me, he was afraid. He was afraid of you. I don't know why. I said, because he can sense positive energy versus negative energy. Negative energy can't survive positive energy. That's why aliens can't touch me. Why creatures can't touch me. Why I do possessions, deep possessions, and exorcisms. Because they can't touch me. And I was involved with hypnosis, and something they don't talk about. When you hypnotize somebody, you hypnotize those things around them as well. So you get them to talk as well. And you're not going to know who's talking, whether it's a person or the entities around it. So there's a lot of things that most UFO hypnotists don't deal with at any level. I know many high-level spiritual, so-called psychics that claim to be the best hypnotist. And when I dealt with one, I'm not going to say his name, he claims he did more than anybody else in the United States. I think he had to do like 100 a day or whatever. And I listened to what he said. I listened to him talk. But they never speak about anything important. To me right now, the most important thing is learning why you're really here. To have a house, to have children, to have a car. What are you here for? Spirituality is a word that everybody uses. Well, I'm more spiritual now. What makes a person more spiritual? They don't eat animals. They don't kick people. What makes a person spiritual in their mind? All right. I'll give you the shortest definition that I can. Understanding God. It's that simple. And when you get past the astral plane and go into the mental plane, the soul plane, the higher planes, you'll get closer to God to be able to start understanding it. But obviously you're not going to understand it here. You don't understand what deities are, and they're real. I mean, I would have never tried to get involved with a deity. I didn't even know what a deity was when it came to me. All I know it was beautiful. And I followed it. And she taught me all about crystals and the inner worlds and everything else. It was incredible. But I was 6, and it lasted till I was 12. Right. And I didn't even know who it was until I was 25, when my Tibetan teacher said, you know who you're working with? I said, what do you mean who I'm working with? The being that you said you're working with. No. And then he told me. It's Green Tara. All right? And she's one of the deities that's accepted in Buddhism and Hinduism. All right? She's one of the most, to me, the most balanced energy and everything. She's not teaching about death and life, but an incredible being to work with, if you can. Not in all Buddhism and Hinduism, how many people actually work with the deity itself? And I said, let me see people that do. Because you learn things, and it's not, but I wanted to say, I wanted to get into like near-death experiences, but I'll skip it. But what I'm going to say is, when you experience something, how much of the experience do you remember, or do you want to remember? Getting back to when you go on a UFO ship and you get abducted and get programmed. I do a show every week with a woman from England who's been abducted half of her life. And we have more proof of different things The government actually took what they cut out of her stomach and will not let the world see it. They said it's too confidential. She had to go to court, and they said, no, we can't release that to the public because she was abducted. And she had a child, theirs, and she was carrying it, and they cut it out of her. It's certainly part of her story. Sorry.
What about programs like MK Ultra?
I don't care about any government program because they're not going to help us directly. Their only concern is to protect the millionaires. Basically, nobody talks about the underground cities. I guarantee the richest people all have their nice little castle underground, planning on going down there when the disaster hits. All right? The Army, the Navy, the Marines, they're out defending the rich people. They're not defending the homeless. Yeah, people have to know about money. Money is the root of all evil. Jesus said it over and over and over. And his phrase was, it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich person to get into heaven. I put that on all the rich people. I put it on that thing almost every week. And I say, you talk about money, and then all of a sudden, I'm going to donate $1.2 billion for this and that. When you have a percentage and you only give a small percentage, like in all religions, you're supposed to give 40% of your salary. All right, if you're even in a religion. But if you call yourself a spiritual person, you wouldn't be living in money. The women in churches, the nuns, can't have money. They can't save money. All right. See, there's a big thing about money, which mankind has. The only thing people care about is money, and everything for the past 6 months is about buying stocks in the new battery. Buy stocks in the new battery. All right. And they're trying to say you'll be a millionaire if you put money in there right now, and then they're going to tell you gold's going to be taken away. Gold will never be taken away. It'll go down. It might go down soon. But when it comes back up, it'll be 3 times more valuable. I promise you that.
I can tell you this on a personal level. I've been poor. I've been destitute, almost homeless. And I will say this. I have a little bit of money now, and I've never been more happier. But there's a difference between having money and being greedy.
Oh, that's a definite story. Greed means you have useless money in the bank doing useless things while the children around your neighborhood are starving to death. All right? I believe in children first, then parents and adults. What we bring into this world, we're responsible for. You have 10 children, you better feed all 10 children. Don't have 10 children if you can only feed 2. I mean, then you don't beat the other ones up that don't do what you tell them to do. We have a sad situation happening, and I just see it this way. Aliens aren't going to make anything better. Oh, well, I had a good experience. Well, what good? I challenge people. I was at a UFO conference by Area 51. And the one person, he was famous. He was on TV doing a show and everything. And I said, well, you work with the Nordics, right? Oh, yeah. I said, what did they do for you? Well, I was in a car crash, and I was outside my car when the car kind of crashed. I said, cool. What else did they do? He couldn't name one other thing. I said, if they're with you all the time helping you, what do they help you do? When you put a person in a spot to tell the truth, very seldom can they come up much more than what they have that program. Well, they helped save me out of this car accident. They'll do something good for you, but they want something in return, just like every other country. We didn't help Tibet because they don't have nothing to offer us, and China took it over. But the prophecy of Tibet was the same prophecy the Hopi people had. I was with Thomas Binyaka right before he died. And he told me, the white man's not going to get along with the red man. And it will be the end of the world. So, and then Tibet just lost to China a couple years ago. They put the charts down together. And almost everything about the prophecy was exactly the same. I mean, if there was peace, we'd be going back into farming. I mean, we could have some really nice vegetables and fruits that have value and calories and protein and all the things that it should have, but we don't. All right, and we're more concerned about weather, but we don't talk about the real problems of the weather. And aliens have a reason to give us weapons. We have a weapon in the United States, directed energy weapon. We're using it on the United States right now. They use it for the 2 fires in Ohio and California. All right, it intensifies the fire by maybe 70%. All right, Why would they do that? I'm not going to go into detail, but you have to think yourself. Why would the United States government shoot a beam at ourselves? All right. There's a lot of things I could tell you about California. One last thing. All the water that disappeared in California, it went to an underground city. I had a friend personally that followed the pipeline to where it went into the underground city. All right? So, when they say, well, we have a drought. And I'll tell you one other thing. When they have all the blackouts in California, stop using your air conditioners, we're using too much energy. They had to shut that down every time they turned the HARP system on. Seriously. My friend worked in the powerhouse, and they would give him the call, shut everything down. And then they turned the HARP system on. Because it would suck the energy out of the ground and shake everything and would have blown everything out if it was on. So there's reasons why birds are dying in thousands and millions, why elk are dying across the United States. Nobody talks about it. They said, it was mad cow disease that killed some of the elk. Linda Mountain Howe was on Coast to Coast, and I challenged her on that. I said, I went across the country. They were dying all over the United States. She was going, well, they were drinking the acid from the volcano. I said, all the men were. I said, no, not at all. But, I'm very looking for the truth, finding the truth, and saying it in front of the person. Because, most people accept what they hear. And I that really bothers me more than anything. Because people like to make stories. I mean, you take the Emerald tablets, the Sumerian tablets, the Urantia, and all these books that have these great stories in them. Which one you want to believe? Are they all real? Do they have any truth to them?
We got 2.5 minutes. Let's get to Downshift's question. Does Bigfoot have a soul?
I would say the same soul that an alien has. And it gets reincarnated. All right. It's pretty much aware, kind of like a human. Doesn't actually function as good as human. Has more power than a human. The one I saw smelled incredibly horrible. It didn't hurt me. It could have. But I know, I could tell you a whole story about that, but I'm not. But a Bigfoot did kill a little girl. And they went hunting for him. And he went hunting with them with a lion, and they caught him and killed him. It was part of a Bigfoot family. I was going to do a movie on that, because they have the Bigfoot frozen on ice. And there's a ship in the lake as well. But it all went down the tubes with John Edmonds when we had his brother. So my nephew who did the movie was going to do the movie, another movie. He came down with throat cancer, so we couldn't do it.
Quick question from John. We got 90 seconds. Is this a prison planet for a short time per life?
It's a prison planet until soul learns what it is. A long time. That means up to 300 reincarnations average. From the beginning of the first time you came onto this planet to the time you really get to leave. If you change your awareness, it could change rather fast. I don't know what it takes for people to do that, because I haven't met one person that has. People say, I'm spiritual now, and what do you do? Oh, I just said I'm spiritual. But no, it's hard. It's a hard work, understanding the inner worlds. Like I said, the first and most important thing you need to learn is how to get out of the body. Starting point. At that point, you can meet angels. You can meet things that can help you, not aliens, to get you into a higher world. You don't want to stay in the astral plane. It's a cool place. When you leave here, it's better than here, but it's not better than the next realm after it.
Awesome. Tommy Hawksblood, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. We really do appreciate your knowledge, your voice, and your information that you have for all of us. And I'd say a big thank you, and enjoy yourself for the rest of the day. And we'll give out your website again here. If anybody wants to check it on out, adventuresintothestrange.com. I'll give it once again.
Anybody,
go ahead.
One fast thing. Anybody, I don't like to write. I have a real problem with writing, even though I have to write books and get them edited 3 times. But anybody that wants to talk, Skype, it's Hawksblood 11. I talk to people. If you want to talk, ask questions, please call me. I'm in Hawaii, so my time's usually different.
All right, my friend.
I
got to wrap it up. Tommy Hawksblood on Spaced Out Radio. Swamp Dweller is next.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on in. Appreciate you, my friend.
Till next time.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. That was a good show. Solid show. Fantastic. Hi, alien believers. Vash the Impaler. And Jonathan Davies. How are you? The gorgeous Candy Romero. Guys, I'm going to take a quick bathroom break here. I'll be right back. All right. Rock and roll. Rock and roll. Well, that was interesting. Sometimes life is interesting. That's all I'm going to say. Thomas Rock, how you doing? Alien believers. All right. Hi, Blue Boom. Welcome to our channel. As the snow keeps falling out here, just like everywhere else. All right, Mr. Swamp Dweller. Thank you so much, man. I got to tell you guys, when Merle and I started just on Monday, we started Canada's Great Unknown. I actually called up Swamp Dweller a couple weeks previous and said, hey, man, I hope you don't mind, but I love what you do. You're kind of an inspiration, and I'd love to do a Canada channel just on Canadian stories. And I'll tell you, if he would have said, dude, there's a lot of them out there, don't do it, I wouldn't have done the channel. But Mr. Swamp, being the real cool dude that he is, actually said, you know what? Go for it. Go for it. And that's why we created, and we launched it Monday, Canada's Great Unknown. There is the YouTube channel right there. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love it if you did. Hey, Sovereign Farts, how you doing? And you know what? We appreciate Swamp Dweller. He'll be our guest tomorrow night. It's going to be a great, great show. And it always is with him. God, he's a good storyteller. By the way, Swamp, I can tell you right now, I think I am around 250 days in a row of listening to your programming each and every night before I go to bed. Think around there, 250 days. Gotta be. It's been months and months and months. Oh, excuse me, guys. Well, I don't know if it's going to be legendary. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever be as good as your channel, but we're going to give it a good shot. Just having some... I can't believe how much fun it is, to be honest with you. It is so much fun, man. So much fun. I could see why you do it. I mean, it's hard work, but it's fun work, which is kind of cool. Well, I know creepypasta means, I know what it means, Bomber. I know. All right, we got 30 seconds. I want to say thank you to Swamp Dweller, to Johnny ×3, Kevin, Dirt Road ×2, and Thomas for the great super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do here on Spaced Out Radio. And if you haven't subscribed to Swamp Dweller yet, make sure you do that as well. You know, trying to get him up to 300,000 here before, next few months. He's cruising. It's at 252. Here we go, everyone.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears, wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Kaleidophone. Kaleidophone is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is that time of the night where once again we head into the swamp, where our main man, Swamp Dweller, takes us for another spooky story adventure.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. It was back in the 1980s. At the time, I was in my late 20s and I would often grab my collie, Lacey, and drive my Mustang convertible to the park not too far from our home to go hiking. Although I was a single female, I always felt safe hiking in that park. It was like my second backyard. It was a hot Sunday morning in July. There was a slight breeze and a beautiful blue sky. It was pretty early, around 8:30 a.m., and the park was deserted when we pulled up into the parking area. The parking lot was near the picnic area and restrooms, and it would get crowded later in the day when the families arrived for their picnics, and the fishermen would make their way out to the lake and try their luck at catching that elusive big one. This park covers 1,900 acres of land, and has miles of wooded dirt trails that intersect each other. There are a few main trails that pass by a lake, and meander along a lazy river, and lead to 3 hidden, breathtaking waterfalls. It is heavily forested, and in the summer, when the leaves are all on board, the trail's visibility is limited to the path. I loved that park, hiked it often, and knew the trails like the back of my hand, and enjoyed having it to myself. I intentionally chose times when I knew it would be less crowded. The lot I parked in is across a little road from the head of my trail. It's my favorite trail. As I called Lacey out of the car and snapped on her leash, another car pulled into the lot. He parked rather close to me, and I found it rather annoying and a bit strange. I go there for solitude and peace, and there were plenty of other parking spots, and there was no need to crowd me. The trail Lacey and I wanted to hike on was across the road, so I headed that way. We started up the hill and onto a heavily wooded hiking trail. For some reason, I was feeling a sense of dread and glanced at the man as he was getting out of his car. I am somewhat suspicious when hiking alone and immediately found him a bit off. Something about him was setting off alarm bells in my head. He appeared to be in his 40s and was by himself, which is not unusual. A lot of people hiked by themselves. It was his attire and demeanor that caught me off guard. He was dressed like no other hiker I have ever seen. He had on dress pants and shiny black dress shoes, like the ones my dad would always wear going to church. The clothes and shoes were a bit shabby, but still not something somebody would wear when hiking. None of the trails in this park were paved. They were all dirt and often muddy since they crossed meandering streams. But it was his expression that struck me the most. He was staring intently at Lacey and I, with no expression on his face, and it was making me extremely uncomfortable. I thought to myself, who does that, and who wears dress shoes hiking? I began to think, and I became more uneasy. There was just something creepy about him. Most people who hike the trails keep to themselves, but will say a brief "Hi, how you doing?" or wave, something like that. This man simply stared intently at Lacey and I with no expression in his blank eyes. I knew somewhere deep down inside of me that it would be the best plan of action to avoid him entirely. It was a little voice in my head that I had to listen to. I considered giving up my hiking altogether that day, but I'd been looking forward to it, and Lacey was raring to go, and maybe I was just being paranoid. So I turned back around and began walking up the main hiking trail. I decided to verge off one of the many little paths that branched off the main trail. I chose this trail as it was not marked with any signage and did not go towards the falls of the river, but winded through the dense, heavily forested woods. It was not as popular as the other trails, and I figured I could avoid the man as he probably would choose one of the more popular marked trails that most hikers would. As Lacey and I walked along, I glanced around to see if I could still see him. To my dread, I realized that he had also chosen the trail we were hiking. I looked around to see if there were any other hikers out, but it was just him, myself, and Lacey. I was not concerned to the point of panic, but still somewhat freaked out. It was just himself, myself, and Lacey. I was not concerned to the point of panic, but still freaked out. I decided it was best to continue to steer clear of him, and as soon as I was able, I took a different cross trail to avoid him. The trail I chose headed off in an entirely different direction from the way he was headed. I kept walking at a fast pace, trying to put as much distance between me and him as possible. I tried to enjoy the gorgeous, beautiful day, but I could not shake the feelings of unease, and all the while walking tried to stay diligent of the man's location. After hiking for about 5 minutes, I began to feel my sense of unease increasing. I turned back to notice that the same figure, once again, was following us in the distance, gaining on us slowly but steadily. He had taken the same intersecting trail as Lacey and I, and was following behind us again. He did not appear to be enjoying the walk. He was not looking at the nature around him, just staring right at Lacey and me. He continued to stalk us at a quick pace with a sense of purpose into his stride. His face was motionless, his eyes never leaving us. As I glanced to him, it seemed waves of malice were emanating from him, and I was more scared than I had ever been in my life. By this time, Lacey was beginning to feel my anxiety. She was a beautiful dog and looked a lot like Lassie. She was a good 65 pounds and, unlike most collies, did not care for strangers or anything else out of the ordinary. She was also beginning to pick up on my emotions and starting to perceive this danger. She began stopping and turning, looking back at him, perceiving this person as a threat. I knew all of these trails like the back of my hand and was quite sure we could lose him. I crossed into another trail, and I thought surely we had gotten far enough ahead of him that he would be unable to determine which trail we had walked. Glancing nervously behind me, but much to my horror, when I looked up the trail ahead, I saw him walking straight towards us at a determined pace. He had somehow found the trail that circles around us and then crossed over to head us off. This could be no accident. It was obvious to me now that he was intentionally following us. But why? My brain went into overdrive. All of my senses were telling me that I was not in a good situation. I wondered what I could do. I had a very, very bad feeling about this man, and had to find an escape route and get back to the safety of my car as quickly as I could. I hastily looked around for another trail that I could take before he would reach us. There was nothing. Quickly thought it through, and determined that my only options were to turn and run back to the opposite direction, dash into the heavily forested woods, or walk right past him. I looked at him, judged the distance, and knew if I ran, even with his street clothes on, he could possibly catch me on the trail. I had no desire to run off into the woods as the grounds are heavily covered with tripping hazards, and I've watched enough horror movies to know that the running victim always trips and falls out of panic. I contemplated all of those options, and you are probably going to think I'm crazy, but I decided the best course of action was to keep walking straight ahead and walk past him. I was not alone. I had Lacey, and she gave me the courage to confront the alarming, disconcerting stranger. As we walked closer to him, he said nothing but kept staring at us intently with his blank, emotionless expression. His eyes were very dark and menacing. I walked nervously towards him, and as we got closer and closer to him, I began talking to Lacey under my breath, urging her on with a desperate voice pleading over and over, "Get him! Get him!" Lacey felt my fear. She felt it to her very core, and fed off of it. She began growling low in her throat. The closer he got to us, the louder and more profound the rumbling from within her became. By the time we passed him, I was physically holding her off by her leash. She was lunging at him, snarling and baring her teeth. He did not react like someone being threatened aggressively by a dog. There was no resentment, no irritation. Strangely, he said nothing to me, and I said nothing to him. He passed by us and gave Lacey a wide berth, no longer looking at us or showing any interest at all. I lightly said, "That's not nice, Lacey." I was petting her and encouraging her to growl at him the entire time, though. She continued to give him the Clint Eastwood stare and kept barking until he was well past us. I kept an eye on him, ensuring he did not back away or turn back towards us. I was eventually relieved to see that he made his way to a trail that led to the parking lot. I got in his car and drove away. I continued my hike heading to a different side of the park. I kept thinking about the man and wondering what he had been doing. To this day, I think Lacey saved me from an awful situation, and when we returned home that day, I made sure she got an extra special treat.
And we thank our man Swamp Dweller for another awesome story. You go to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller Reads, hit that subscribe button, and have some fun with it. There's literally thousands of stories there that he has done over the years. We love him around here. He'll actually be our guest tomorrow night, so it'll be great getting into some stories with him as well. All right, it is that time once again for the fedora-wearing John Hudson and the unbiased UFO Report. John comes in every couple of nights to talk everything UFOs with us, as we got to keep our feet on the scene of what's going on in the UFO world. Mr. Fedora, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, Dave. You're doing good. How about you? I'm trying to get a little more light on myself here.
I am doing absolutely great, my friend, and it's always good to be talking some UFOs with you. And we got some really cool topics, for tonight. I got to ask you, what the hell is Schroeder's box, and what's a camera doing with it?
Basically, either I mistyped it or you misspoke it. One of the two. Either way, it makes it more funny. Basically, we're talking about Schrodinger's box. And for those of you who are not familiar with Schrodinger's box, Schrodinger's box is the...
Time out. You're not throwing... Please. You are not throwing me under the bus with this one. You typed out Schroeder's box.
Did I really? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I want to make sure that was my fault.
I'm going to trip you as well over that one.
No. What was really funny was at first I thought it was actually spell checking me to Schrodinger, and I was like, "There's no way that this iPad knows how to spell Schrodinger." But anyway, the point is that the Schrodinger's box experiment is the classic experiment that you've probably all heard about, that where the cat is in the box and there is a radioactive element in the box that has a 50-50 chance of decaying. And if it does decay, then poison is released and the cat dies. And if the doesn't decay, then the cat lives. And the hypothesis is that essentially, until you look inside the box, the cat is neither alive or dead. Because it's only when you actually can look inside the box and discover the cat's state that you actually are aware of the overall state of the system. This has years and years of debate, books, TV shows, a lot of YouTube, let me tell you. But the reason why we're talking about this tonight, and the only reason why I'm boring some of you with this, because this isn't directly a UFO topic, is because of how cool this is, and because of how often we have talked about entanglement and spooky action at a distance and all these concepts. And so basically what it comes down to is that a group at MIT were able to cool down a system to a low enough temperature that they were actually able to witness the moment where classical became quantum, or when quantum became classical. There's a transition point, just like you have a transition point in when something's melting or it's water and it turns to steam. There's this transition point, and we've never, ever been able to see this transition point. Now, what makes it so interesting about this is that what they actually saw in the experiment is that when the particle was in its superposition state, essentially, it became an actual cloud, an actual mist is my word, but it became a cloud type form. And the way to think about this is that the cloud holds in it all the probabilities that exist for that particle, right? So all the possible things that could happen to it exist in that space. And then at the point where reality sticks and you're now trying to get to a particle, what they witnessed was a freaking tornado. They actually witnessed, and if you think about it, it makes flawless sense, right? Because nature is all about least path of resistance, the most efficient way of doing things. And that kind of funnel shape, we see repeated all over the place. Black holes, your toilet, all over the place, because it's an incredibly efficient way to move stuff from one plane to another, right? And so they were actually able to witness this cloud state, and then as it actually started to form the vortices, that would basically take that cloud and bring it down to the point where it's an actual particle that you can see. And it's not that they saw this entire process, but what they were able to see was these vortexes form in the cloud, allowing them to now realize that essentially that vortex formation is part of this process. And this is a big deal. Like this is really exciting stuff.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah, you have to trust me on that, Dave. But it is really a big deal, because this has been like one of the biggest black boxes in science, is seeing this transition. And if they're right, and there's still a possibility they're not, but if they're right and they're actually witnessing this transition, then not only is it a big deal from a discovery point of view, but it's a big deal from a practical application of this technology later. Like these are the sort of realizations that can spring a whole new industries.
Okay, let's get to some UFOs. And realistically,
I didn't talk about isotopes, right?
I'm just wondering.
Isotopes once.
I was surprised. All right. Other shoe drops on human sensors at Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. So I apologize on this one. I don't have any good data to show any of you, except for me to recommend that you read this new book that recently came out called Skinwalkers. It's Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Bugger, I have it written down somewhere. Skinwalkers, the latest book that just came out. And where you have to kind of attach another data point is if you go back to some of the earlier days of Skinwalker Ranch, what one of the things that got reported that was considered, well, at least me personally, I considered to be extremely weird, was the essentially while people were on Skinwalker Ranch, if they had an event, if they had any sort of interaction with anything that was weird, one of the things they had to do was they had to give some biological samples immediately, like body fluid, and essentially send that to a lab in Las Vegas, right? And so originally this was a little bit of a mystery as to why on earth they were doing this, right? Well, now in this new book, what Lukatsky, if I'm pronouncing that right, I hope I am, what he covers in this book is that what they discovered was that the human immune system is one of the best sensors they'd ever discovered. And that you can tell a boatload of stuff from your immune system, including things like, certain types of magnetic fields. I mean, you can discern. I was shocked how much you can discern from your immune system. And so now the other shoe drops, and now we understand why they were asking everyone who had any sort of event to send their fluids off to Las Vegas, because the nice thing about doing the immune system was all you needed to test it was a blood sample. It's not an invasive procedure. All you need is a blood sample. So once you have a blood sample, you can do the full battery of work that you need to do to get the results you're looking for. And so what they were doing is that they were using them all as human sensors by monitoring their immune systems. And if you think about it, this not only is super interesting, but there's an kind of an odd correlation possibly in that, so many of the side effects that we see from contact end up revolving around immune system issues, right? And so it'd be interesting to see if there ends up being some relationship to that in the future. We'll see.
How is that going to affect any sort of testing at Skinwalker Ranch?
Well, it's not that it's going to affect the testing. What it is it finally opens the door to us and helps us to understand what they were doing and why they were doing it. Right? It explains why they were able to get away with perhaps not having as many sensors in the field. It's the reason why they were. It was a very weird thing that they were asking people to do body fluid, deposits into a container and send it to a lab in Las Vegas. I mean, I'm sorry, like even if you're at Skinwalker Ranch, which is, let's face it, not the most normal place in the world, that had to seem damn weird, right? I mean, it's like, you want me to do which, right? I mean, I don't know.
But it is understandable though, John. So we got about a minute to go, because if there's any sort of radiation coming through, they're going to want to test it.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. But I mean, there are other ways the body will show that. But no, you're right. I mean, you absolutely have to appreciate the fact that they cared about the safety and that they were. I completely agree. But what we've learned now is that the human immune system was specifically being leveraged as the most sensitive tool they had for measuring effects of the phenomenon.
Very true. Very true. Excellent work so far. We have you for another segment here right after the break on Spaced Out Radio. And when we come back, we're going to spend some time on this one. The Lou Elizondo documentary. A lot of issues going on with this one right now. Are they justified? Are they not? We'll find out. The fedora-wearing John Hudson is here on Spaced Out Radio. He comes in, keeps us all up to date on what the isotopes are doing on a daily basis. We appreciate him around here. We'll be back with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, we're clear.
How are you, Dave?
I'm good.
Good.
It's my Wednesday night tired night.
Quite a night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really debated talking about this issue because, one, there's so much talk occurring about it. It's like, what more could you say? But at the same time, I think there's a really good chance that there are people. Well, yeah, but also I think there's a good chance there's people listening to this show that aren't aware of it and would appreciate just a quick synopsis of what's going on. So,
yeah, no, we'll spend some time on it. I have been, excuse me, I have been up and down on the topic. I made a comment last night to start off the show before our radio people got involved. And it's tough. It's a tough situation because many people were put into precarious positions.
Yep. No. There many people were not served well in this whole process. Mm-hmm. But it's also something that has to be dealt with so carefully yeah, but the other thing I like about you being included in the conversation is that, I have as much skin in this game as anyone else does from the point of view of caring about this community, but you have a far more direct involvement in what occurred, and you yourself were an unwitting, an unwitting and unagreed to accomplice in this whole process, and horribly unfair.
Yeah, it's not just me. It was John Greenwald from the Black Vault, Thomas Fessler, who actually told the creator not to use his stuff, and Lou Jimenez from Unidentified Celebrity Review. I'm going to clarify some things here tonight when we come back.
Good.
I'm going to clarify some things.
Good.
And if we end up skipping the news and the thought of the Dave over it, that's okay.
Yeah. No, and obviously your call. But the other thing is that there, because of what this is, and because of how it's played out, there are a boatload of really interesting learning opportunities. I know that sounds like kind of silly, but it's true. There are a bunch of really good learning opportunities here that I think, each of us should try to grab one of those and play it to its advantage, because there's a lot to learn here. There's still a lot of other things that could have gone wrong, even if the things that had gone wrong had gone right. You know what I mean? There were so many. It was such a powder keg.
Yeah.
I have this cool app for my TV that it's a pixel flipper, and it flips each pixel between like 24 and 27 times a second.
That's kind of cool.
Flips its colors, and it basically creates like just snow, like static. But what it does is it fixes like stuck pixels and like shadows and like burn in issues you have on your TV.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of fun to look at because it's like entropy in practice.
We got 27 seconds. Big thank you to Dirt Road ×2, Thomas, Kevin, Johnny ×3, Swamp Dweller for the amazing super chats tonight. Thank you very much for the love and support of Spaced Out Radio. We really do appreciate it. And we're going to get going here in about 5 seconds. If you haven't signed up yet for our YouTube channel, here it is. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire, checking out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the fedora-wearing John Hudson and the unbiased UFO Report. And John, last weekend, there was a documentary created by Lou Elizondo, or on Lou Elizondo, that has been highly critical of him. And this has taken the UFO world by storm. There's a lot of people who are absolutely praising the creator of this, and there are people who are absolutely berating him. I mean, it's about a 50-50 split right now.
And it's so hard because there's so many shades of each one of them. Because, you take me, for example, and I will viciously defend the voice of a dissenter. Always. People should always be welcomed to offer dissenting views. There should always be a safe place for that. And if that film had been done differently, I'm not even going to place judgment as to how, but if that film had been done differently, it could have been a really valuable asset to the community, right? I mean, like anytime someone does a good, thoughtful research project on anyone or anything, it educates all of us. Unfortunately, this one execution was challenged.
Well, I think what we need to explain to people, especially our radio audience, who may not fully understand this documentary, some people are calling it a piece that is a complete hit piece on Luis Elizondo and his credibility, where the creator went as far as doxing his family members, his wife, his children, which hasn't sat well within the community. The creator of this also, asked some very, very tough and pertinent questions. Where I draw the line with a little bit of it is the fact that the creator of it really has come across. I don't think. Let me put it this way. Let me rephrase here for a second. I don't think there was a lot of journalistic integrity. Now, granted, the person is not a journalist. Okay, he's a UFO aficionado who enjoys and loves this topic. Let's be real with that right off the bat. His opinions may differ from many in the UFO community, and I think he allowed his own personal bias to really come out and play in this documentary. Now, when I watch a documentary, I want to see both sides of the ledger. There was no interviews. His research on a lot of it was pretty good. He was quite assumptive on many other of the pieces. when I say assumptive about whether or not Luis Elizondo actually served in the military because his records aren't public. But, I mean, it's the same thing as I used this example talking to a person in the UFO field earlier today. When the Navy SEALs took out Osama bin Laden, we don't know their records. We don't even know who it was. That's the type of team Luis Elizondo, we are led to believe, was a part of. But, that being said, Elizondo is a polarizing figure. He spins a lot of words that don't provide a lot of answers. Yes, he encourages people to read between the lines, but many people struggle with that. And I believe that needed to be called out. Even though I am, if I were to say, am I a supporter or not of Elizondo, I would say I am a supporter of his. All right, because I've talked to the man privately. But where I am very concerned with is this point. We, as Spaced Out Radio, are currently talking to our lawyer regarding our interview and portions of our interview being shown in this documentary without any consent or knowledge of it happening. And I'm a pretty easy guy. If anybody wants to use our stuff, as long as it's in good taste, you're more than welcome to use it. Okay? You're more than welcome to use it. But we were not contacted. We were not informed. We were not given the opportunity to say yes or no. And one of the pieces that they showed, there was actually on our screen, because for our radio audience, we also broadcast on YouTube Live as well. And a lot of times we'll put people's names up in the chat room for either a comment or what they call a super chat, which is a donation to the show. And he actually put one of our listeners' names in the documentary when their name came up on the screen. And that person is very upset about it. Now, it wasn't just Spaced Out Radio that he used interviews from without permission under the name of fair use. He also used it from the Black Vault and John Greenwald, who never has come out publicly saying he's never given permission for anybody to use that in a documentary style. He contacted a good friend of this show, Thomas Fessler, from Disclosure Tonight, asking if he could use clips from Fessler, and Fessler said no. I would not want that to be a part of it. He also contacted another good friend who was just on our roundtable, Luis Jimenez, from the Unbiased UFO, that's you, John, from the Unidentified Celebrity Review, very popular YouTube channel, and they used clips from interviews there, and Mr. Jimenez said he never granted permission. He's pretty upset about it and wondering how to do it. The reason why we're wondering is because we are all getting contacted by people asking if we are in support of this documentary. Right. And it puts all of us in a very precarious position, because most people are going to assume that we gave him that information to use from our show, which we did not. Now, the creator of this is calling it, under the United States government, fair use, where he can take clips from any type of news source or podcast source and use it in his documentary. The problem that he has is on YouTube, if the video is flagged as not being for public usage, then you can put a strike against that person and against the video and the channel. So this goes way beyond just making a documentary about someone, John.
Right. Yeah, I know. And that's the thing, is there's so many angles to this. I mean, it's like, could you argue that evidence as to Lou's military record should be fair ground in such a documentary? I would argue yes. At least if it's done respectfully and it's done with integrity, that's a reasonable thing to investigate, right? You start trying to find out what my daughter's name is and what school she goes to. Boy, man, you've crossed lines, and it's like, and it's hard because it's like, I know it gets difficult when people are trying to do what they consider to be credibility or integrity checks on people. They're trying to weigh what kind of person someone is, right? But boy, man, and it's just so, and that's a hard thing. It's it's like like if I had in a perfect world, I would want to find some way to shut this down without ever putting any fear or doubt or concern in anyone else that's ever going to produce something like this, that theirs would also get shut down, because I like the idea of what he did, and I believe in the idea of what he did. I think his execution of it is not personally what I would do, but that's my challenge with it. My challenge is with his execution. It's not with the concept of a severely dissenting voice.
I'm not going to comment on the video, but I am going to comment on a few things that do involve us, because the creator of this documentary stated a few times that Mr. Elizondo only goes on shows that he feels safe on. We had two of the most journalistic interviews with him, and we didn't ask the same old questions that everyone else did. We were highly commended within many of the UFO community, and including a couple of people very close to Elizondo's inner circle literally said that Lou stated to them point blank that he was sweating a little bit by the questions we were asking. All right? And because we went,
that part I hadn't heard. That's cool.
We went at him. Now,
very respectfully.
But here's the thing, though. You can ask a tough question without sounding like a meathead. All right? It's all in the way you push it. I've had people ask me point blank, how come you aren't like pointing your finger, yelling at the person? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? When you can say it subtly and get the same point across, you'll probably get a better answer that's less defensive.
Yep.
Right? Number two, in that documentary, it was stated that we, as favorite shows of Mr. Elizondo, provide questions to him. Okay? I have it on record denying a TTSA request on an email stating that I would not provide questions to any member of the To the Stars Academy because I am a journalist and I am a professional radio host. And I will not do that. And I said, well, we're not going to take the interview then. I have that email. All right, so the idea that we were asked, or it was said in that documentary, that we were providing, not just us, but every show that he goes on, provides him with the fluffball questions, is not true. If the creator would have come up to me and asked me about what I know about it, I would have told him what I know about Mr. Elizondo. I would have. But I was not asked. All right? Lou Elizondo's been on this show twice. I've talked to him 3 times on the telephone. And I've sent him a total of about 8 text messages. That's my entire life's conversation with Elizondo. Do I call him a friend? No. I don't have any friends in this field. All right? When it comes to people who we interview of that ilk.
Yep.
Okay, it's different if it's a John Hudson or a Nicole Sackich or somebody along those lines, or the crypto guru, You know, the late Butch Witkowski, Varla Ventura, Geraldine Orozco, or anybody like that. That's different. Okay, but when they get into a certain area, there's no friendship the minute this microphone here goes on. It's like a hockey game or a sports game. Okay, your best friend may be playing for a different team, and while you're playing against each other, that friendship is put aside, and it's time to work. That's what we do. So there was some inconsistencies there that didn't make sense, and I didn't appreciate that, because when you lump things together like that, there's no truth to it, especially when you are making assumptive sentences about it. Now, there's other people out there who are supporting this who are saying, well, they're all pissed off. They're all angry. I'm not angry. I just wanted to be contacted if you were going to use our information. That's what I wanted. Have the common decency and the professionalism to use our information.
But I will add to that and I worry this is what they're referring to, and that is that I personally have been rather disturbed by some of the rhetoric that I've been seeing from people as a result of what happened. Some of the things that are being said about the creator of that documentary, innuendos and veiled threats and so forth. Very,
that's not right.
Very childish stuff.
No,
very
that's not right.
Stuff. And what's sad is that, like don't let people bring that out in you. Like, we're all better than that. It's like, I mean, it makes it all so distasteful. And now I understand the military guys, right? The military guys have their ethics and their code, so they want to make comments about that. That's fine. But for anyone not in the military making that kind of rhetoric, it just makes me nuts.
Rob Heatherly from Disclosure Tonight, who's a very good guy. He is a disabled military veteran, and him and Lou have talked quite a bit over, behind the scenes. There's a respect and a camaraderie there that a bond, John, that you will never know, I will never know. Yep. I'm not even going to push it. And the way Rob has come out and actively defended Lou as a veteran, I think that is great. When you are accusing somebody of stolen valor without any proof, that's a dangerous precedent to make, number one. But, I mean, the document here, but here's the thing. That does not allow the UFO community to come out and threaten and
hell no.
The person who is making this documentary. It's childish. It's corrupt. All right, there are too many people in this UFO world who look at Lou as some sort of demigod, okay, that is going to lead the righteous path to UFO disclosure. We do have to realize, whether we like it or not, Lou is a spook. He's a spy. He's counterintelligence. Their entire job, is to manipulate people and coerce people to get what they want. He may not be doing that to the UFO community, but he may. And until Lou comes clean, whether it's with his book or whether it's through more public interviews where he answers tougher questions rather than pushing everything to his NDA, which is the answers we all want, there is always going to be some question about Elizondo. And as long as those questions are fair and the information is point-counterpoint, people do need to start asking Luis Elizondo more proper, pertinent questions that need to be asked for the community. Because here's the thing, John, there is a massive, massive difference between confirmation of UFOs and disclosure. And we're not going to get to squeeze either if we don't have the proper information. We are not.
And let me add that on Elizondo's part, I guarantee you that he feels the same way. I've been in interviews where they've avoided all the hard questions, and it irritates me to absolutely no end. I want those hard questions. So, yeah, I completely agree with you.
Right? And Lou knows he needs to answer those questions. He wants to answer those questions. He cannot
Sometimes they're
answer.
fun.
You know, I mean, think about it. What would happen? And we've said this on the show before. What would happen if Lou Elizondo came out and stated, "I've seen aliens"? Maybe he has with his job. Maybe he has not. All right? But doxing a family?
Oh, geez.
Okay, not cool. Using people's copywritten material under a fair use, even though YouTube, who stores all our video programming, has rules against that. That's not fair.
And also to use the content in a way that was clearly against the wishes of the content creator.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's just just like I said, there are so many aspects to this that you could dive into as a really interesting learning experience. Unfortunately, the way it's all played out together, it's turned into a very distasteful process, and I'm very concerned about the amount of retaliatory rhetoric that's occurring. I think it needs to end now.
John, I thank you for sticking around for the extra long unbiased UFO report. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you again.
No, thank you, sir.
All right, Big John Hudson, the fedora-wearing one who also comes in on the weekends to host with Gemma Jade, Bree, a.k.a. Thin Lizzie Borden, and Big Willie on the after hours, right after Lynn Wallington's spaced out weekend shows on Saturday and Sunday. Our entire team works so hard. They are phenomenal. We love them dearly. Absolutely dearly. And, of course, a big thank you to Mr. Swamp Dweller for the great story tonight. Find him on YouTube. And our guest, Tommy Hawksblood. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, and on Twitter. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.